Chapter 37:14. Everyone was stunned. What kind of situation was this? They originally thought that they could easily kill Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable, who was already at the end of her tether. This was also their plan from the start, which was to surround and kill Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable. But now, problems kept arising. First, Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable had a sudden burst of divine might and killed a 7th realm Heavenly Venerable by surprise. Originally, this wasn't a big deal, as everyone knew that this was her final burst of brilliance. Such a peerless attack wouldn't happen a second time. Sacrificing a 7th realm Heavenly Venerable to kill a peak Heavenly Venerable was worth it no matter how one looked at it, especially since the one who died wasn't them. Moreover, they could obtain too much from Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable. They simply couldn't imagine how much wealth, inheritance, and secrets a peak Heavenly Venerable had. However, just as they were rejoicing, another accident occurred. Another 8th realm divine ability, Epic Heavenly Venerable, died tragically, killed by Saber Light. If the ghost Epic's Heavenly Venerate had been caught off guard because he had been too close, then this Blade Light was too horrifying. This was because even they did not know where the Saber Light had come from. In other words, if it were them, they probably wouldn't be able to dodge this Saber Light either. This Saber Light was too stunning. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable opened her eyes. The expected death didn't come. It was as if what happened just now was just a dream. However, the tearing sensation in every cell in her body told her that everything that happened just now wasn't a dream, but reality. She was indeed besieged by many experts and nearly died. This was the most dangerous battle she had ever experienced in her life, even more tragic than the battle with Demon Venerable Luo Ho. At that time, she still had the supreme ancestral symbol Tiger God and could escape. Although Demon Venerable Luo Ho attacked her, Demon Venerable Luo Ho's main focus was on dealing with the Talisman Epic's Heavenly Tao. Now, he was trapped here, surrounded by 3 peak Heavenly Venerables and 5 Heavenly Venerables. These 8 great Empyreans formed a massive net to swallow her up. She was forced to sublimate her own combat strength and burn her own life source. However, she also knew that this would only buy her some time. It would be very difficult for her to obtain victory. Those Empyreans were not ordinary people. Moreover, she was at a complete disadvantage in terms of numbers. However, just as she was about to give up all hope, a Saber Light descended from the sky and killed the 8th level Heavenly Venerate from the Mystic Ability era. The style of that saber was too amazing. It was like the first ray of light in the world, illuminating everything and tearing apart the darkness. Just as everyone was dumbfounded, a figure descended from the sky, stepping on a sky full of golden lotuses. Martial Eminence. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable was in disbelief. At her most dangerous moment, when she was in danger, it was Yi Shiwen who rescued her from the brink of death. Just like that time, this was the second time. "Are you all right?" Yi Shiwen said casually. It was as if the shocking act of killing a celestial master with a single slash wasn't done by him. "I'm fine, but if you came a little later, it's hard to say." Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood and said. However, it could be seen that she was in a good mood and still had the mood to joke. As soon as her voice fell, a fiery red phoenix flew into her body. After a single cry, she immediately felt a lot better. Her physical body, which was on the verge of collapse, was also stabilized. Although it was not completely better, at least it did not continue to deteriorate. It could be said that Yi Shiwen casually stopped the deterioration of her injuries. His skill was clearly much stronger than before. She was also stunned. She did not know what kind of fortuitous encounter Yi Shiwen had. He actually improved again. It was obvious that a peak Empyrean had improved a step. At this moment, she was very gratified. She did not misjudge Yi Shiwen. Back then, she put all her hopes on Yi Shiwen. Now it turned out that her thoughts were not wrong. Yi Shiwen was indeed not an ordinary person. In such a short time, he actually possessed the strength to be on equal footing with Demon Venerable Luo Ho. This was probably something that no one expected. "It's you." At this moment, The Empyrean Immortal Venerable surrounding Heaven Talisman Immortal were stunned. They did not expect Yi Shiwen to appear here. Of course, they knew of Yi Shiwen's existence. It was just that Yi Shiwen did not appear in the past 2 days. So, they all thought that Yi Shiwen would not appear. Whether he had died or was delayed by something, Yi Shiwen should not be able to come. But at the most crucial moment, when they were about to succeed, he appeared and ruined their efforts. In order to kill Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable, they resisted and did not make a move. Now, their plan was ruined. Yes, it's me. You guys are really bold, Yi Shiwen shouted. Suddenly, a terrifying frenzy swept out. The entire battlefield trembled under his terrifying aura. Countless Tao patterns emerged. They were the unique Tao patterns in Sage Absolute Heaven's tomb. In order to ensure that the entire tomb did not collapse, they emerged and locked the space so that it would not collapse instantly. Pada, under Yi Shiwen's terrifying aura, these Empyrean Immortal Venerable who surrounded the two of them took a step back. They were frightened by Yi Shiwen's aura, so they took a step back unconsciously. They only felt that Yi Shiwen was an extremely terrifying beast. Then, a feeling of shame surged in their hearts. As dignified Empyrean Immortal Venerable, they were all high-level Empyrean Immortal Venerable, and even peak Empyrean Immortal Venerable. They actually took a step back because of someone's shout. Although it was not much, if it was spread out, they would still be a huge laughingstock. These people's expressions started to become extremely unfriendly. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they looked at Yi Shiwen. They could not wait to kill Yi Shiwen immediately to make fun of their shame. Eastern Tianzuan, you're here. Be careful. They've planned this from the start. If anything goes wrong, you should leave on your own. We can't let 3 of us die here. If that happens, the entire Fortune Divine dynasty will collapse. The Middle Empyrean's voice sounded. Seeing Yi Shiwen did not surprise him. He only felt extremely worried. The situation this time was indeed beyond his imagination. He had already imagined the worst situation and was already prepared before coming. But the truth was that this young half-step sovereign was even more terrifying than he had imagined. He was defeated in a casual move. It also made him understand that although it might only be a thin line, the difference was like heaven and earth. Although he had touched that realm, he had merely touched it. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen had already taken 1 step into it. Such a gap was like the difference between heaven and earth. If this was the Fortune God dynasty, he would not be afraid. The other party would be suppressed by the martial epic's heavenly Tao. Furthermore, he could use the Creation Universe Scroll. It was not like he did not have the strength to fight. However, here, he did not have the support and protection of the martial epic. He also did not have the protection of the Creation Universe Scroll. This was why he suffered a great loss the moment he arrived. The Western Empyrean was severely injured and scattered. Moreover, he was chased by several Empyreans. His chances of escaping were not high. Now, he had to face the sneak attack of 3 experts. His chances of escaping were not high. The difference in strength between the 2 sides was too great. If he and the Western Empyrean were destined to fall here, at the very least, he could not let the Eastern Empyrean die here. As a Middle Empyrean, he might not be very selfless, but he still had this awareness. Each of them represented a large group of people behind them, and it was definitely not just them. Therefore, it was not a good thing for Yi Shiwen to come at this time. If Yi Shiwen had come at the beginning, they might have been able to change things. However, now, whether it was him or Heaven Talisman Immortal, they were already an arrow at the end of its flight. Even if he appeared now, he could not bring them out of this predicament with his own strength. The most important thing was that Yi Shiwen couldn't deal with any one of the 3 great experts that he was facing. Perhaps Yi Shiwen was very strong now, but these 3 people were too strong. If he was at his peak, he naturally would not have to worry. Even if he was not a match for the 3 of them, he would have no problem protecting himself. He had traveled the world for so many years. He still had this bit of confidence. It was too difficult to kill him in the same realm. However, he had been severely injured before this. This forced him to use all his strength and burn his life source. Otherwise, He might not be able to hold on until Yi Shiwen arrived. In his heart, Yi Shiwen was only equivalent to the level of a peak Empyrean. He had killed 5 Supreme Masters, but that was only an ordinary peak Empyrean. Compared to existences at their level, there was still a huge difference. 1 was enough, let alone 3. Don't worry, I won't die. I have already rescued the Western Empyrean. Today, I specially came to rescue you. Yi Shiwen said loudly. Today I am here. Neither of you will die. You are overestimating yourself. The eyes of the magical ability era's apex, heavenly master who besieged the Middle Empyrean flashed with thick killing intent. He had heard what Yi Shiwen said just now. The person who went to kill the Western Empyrean was not someone else. It was the magical ability era's heavenly master. Yi Shiwen said so. Obviously, the magical ability era's heavenly master had fallen in his hands. Even judging from the fact that none of the heavenly masters had returned, the possibility of them being completely annihilated was very high. His eyes flickered with a terrifying glint as he thought of this. Chapter 37:15. The Divine Ability Era was different from the martial Tao era. They were already in the ancient era. This level of loss was enough to make his heart bleed. Although these people couldn't be considered his subordinates, he was the leader of the Divine Ability Era. These people all followed his lead. They were also forces that he could mobilize when facing external forces. Losing any one of them was a huge loss, and now he had lost so many in one go. It could be said that he couldn't wait to tear Yi Shiwen into pieces. Hurry up and kill the Middle Heavenly Venerables, then kill this arrogant kid. The Divine Ability era's peak Heavenly Venerables said coldly. Ha ha ha, Thunderfire Divinity is getting impatient. Then let's make a move. On the other side, the Ghost Tao era's peak Heavenly Venerables said with a strange laugh. Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord, don't take pleasure in his misfortune. When he kills your Ghost Tao era's Heavenly Venerables, don't cry. Don't underestimate the Eastern Heavenly Venerables of the Fortune God Dynasty. Demon Venerables Luoho said. His killing intent was boiling as he glanced at Yi Shiwen. If the Divine Ability Era only had a few Heavenly Venerables killed by Yi Shiwen, including a peak Heavenly Venerables, then their Devil Tao Era truly had 2 peak Heavenly Venerables killed. In that case, the Demon Path Epic had truly lost 2 peak Empyreans, including the City Lord of Moon City. That was something that made their hearts bleed. Not to mention the number of other Heavenly Venerables that died at Yi Shiwen's hands could be counted on one hand. Even when the Devil Tao era attacked Moon City, they didn't suffer such heavy casualties. And all of this was caused by Yi Shiwen alone. It wasn't even the Middle Heavenly Venerables who had been famous for many years. But at the same time, he also knew that Yi Shiwen was not an ordinary person and couldn't be underestimated. This was the best opportunity to capture him and the Middle Heavenly Venerables in one fell swoop. The Fortune God Dynasty would be in chaos for a long time after losing the Middle Heavenly Venerables and Eastern Heavenly Venerables. Especially the Middle Heavenly Venerables, who were the Deputy Emperor and the leader of the Fortune God Dynasty, in charge of most of the Fortune God Dynasty's affairs. Without the Middle Heavenly Venerables and Eastern Heavenly Venerables, their plan would succeed more easily. East Heavenly Venerate, I'll hold them back. You leave first. At this time, the Middle Heavenly Venerable shouted loudly. His whole body's magical power boiled and swept out like a vast ocean. His speed became even faster. He was actually holding back 3 people by himself. He wanted to buy time for Yi Shiwen to retreat. Yi Shiwen was naturally touched in his heart. No matter what the reason was, the Middle Heavenly Master had indeed taken good care of him for such a long time. Yi Shiwen's cultivation progress would have been much slower if it weren't for the Middle Heavenly Master. In fact, it would have been impossible to compare with his current progress. He looked at the celestial venerates surrounding him and knew that this was the critical moment. Demon Venerate Luohu and the other 2 celestial venerates were about to make their move. The middle celestial venerate had also accelerated his burning of life source. Therefore, there was not much time left for him. Of the original 8 heavenly venerables, one was killed by heaven talisman immortal venerable, and another was killed by him. There were 6 left, and 3 of them were peak celestial venerates. With such a lineup, it was not considered small. In fact, it could even be said that the odds of victory were very high. The premise was that if Yi Shiwen was still the same as before, it would be difficult to kill these powerhouses in a short time, even if he entered the state of human one with the supreme ancestral symbol. When Demon Venerate Lahu and the other 2 celestial venerates finished off the middle heavenly master and came over, the situation would have changed completely. But now it was not a few days ago. He was no longer the same as before. It seems that you didn't take my words to heart. You want to kill people in front of me? Yi Shiwen sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura erupted from his body, and the entire galaxy shook. Everyone's expression changed. This was the first time Yi Shiwen had truly erupted with his true strength. It was much more terrifying than when he killed the magical ability era's celestial venerate with a single slash. At this time, they might have just realized that this might be the true strength hidden behind this man's back. It was also the most terrifying strength. Boom! What's the use of talking so much? At this time, a Ghost Path era's celestial venerate roared and rushed over. Quick! 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 His speed was so fast that his figure almost turned into an afterimage in the sky. However, by the time the afterimage appeared, he had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. He opened his bloody mouth and turned into a frightening, malicious ghost. This was the Ghost Path era's magical ability. It could even swallow a celestial venerate and turn all the blood essence of the celestial venerate into its own nourishment. Swallowing the heavens and devouring the earth was also a supreme Ghost Path magical ability. It was earth-shattering. Yeah, what's the use of talking big? The Ghost Path era's celestial venerate opened his bloody mouth and almost swallowed Yi Shiwen. The astonishing cultivation of the 9th realm erupted all at once. Although it was not comparable to a peak celestial venerate, it was only slightly inferior. However, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and suddenly, countless rays of light burst out from the gaps of his fingers, turning into a terrifying torrent. Then, he directly blasted out a punch. Boom! It was a huge roar. Yi Shiwen's punch instantly smashed the huge ghost head that was swallowing over and penetrated the body of the Ghost Path era's celestial venerate. Drip, drip, drip. Blood dripped down drop by drop. The Ghost Path era's celestial venerate had been hit by Yi Shiwen's punch and was forced to reappear from its illusory state. Everyone could see that his entire chest had been penetrated by Yi Shiwen's punch. Such a scene was really too shocking. One move, just one move. Yi Shiwen had only used a simple punch, yet the Ghost Path era's 9th realm celestial venerate had been penetrated by Yi Shiwen's punch just like that. Ow, is this possible? The Ghost Path era's celestial venerate's eyes were wide open. He could almost feel his vitality rapidly flowing out of his body. This was a situation that could only happen when one was on the verge of death. And this was just a mere exchange of blows. He had already stepped into the 9th realm. How could the difference be so great? He couldn't even resist one move from his opponent and was seriously injured so easily. Immediately afterward, everyone heard the Ghost Path era's celestial venerate scream. The Nanmingli fire on his body began to burn fiercely, burning his spirit into nothingness. His physical body cracked inch by inch. Then, he was grabbed by Yi Shiwen's big hand. One move. Another move had killed the Ghost Path era's celestial venerate. It seemed different from the stunning saber move just now. In fact, it was only the method used that was different. However, the terrifying strength revealed in it made everyone's hair stand on end. This was a 9th realm celestial venerate. It was different from the 8th realm celestial venerate that had just been insta-killed. Even a peak celestial venerate of this level would find it difficult to kill a 9th realm celestial venerate, let alone kill him with one move. Another one. There are still 5 left. Yi Shiwen said slowly. His expression was abnormally calm, as if the person who had just killed a ninth realm celestial venerate with one punch wasn't him. Or it could be said that this was a matter of course for him. There was nothing strange about it. Which one of you wants to come up and die first? Or a group of you coming together to die? Yi Shiwen's expression was indifferent as he looked at these people indifferently. In his eyes, these people seemed to have already become dead people. They couldn't pose any threat to him at all. Damn it, he is too arrogant. We can't let him continue. Are we going to be defeated one by him? Let's go. Let's go together. I don't believe that we can't deal with him with so many of us. These celestial venerates were startled by Yi Shiwen's horrifying performance. However, they were immediately angered by Yi Shiwen's arrogant attitude. Even they had to admit that they might not be Yi Shiwen's match one-on-one. They might not even be able to protect themselves. After all, Yi Shiwen had killed peak celestial venerates more than once or twice. He was definitely a peerless monster. However, what could Yi Shiwen do when they joined forces? 3 peak celestial venerates, an 8th realm ghost epic celestial venerate, and a 9th realm devil epic celestial venerate. This was definitely a shocking lineup. The 5 people glanced at each other and rushed towards Yi Shiwen from 5 directions almost as soon as they finished speaking. They could already see that they couldn't be defeated by Yi Shiwen one by one like this. The 3 people in the lead were 3 peak celestial venerates. These 3 people took the lead. The other 2 experts from the demonic Dao era and the ghost Dao era immediately attacked Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable. Attacking Yi Shiwen was a lie. Their real goal was to kill Heaven Talisman Immortal first. In their opinion, killing Heaven Talisman Immortal first was absolutely beneficial. How could Yi Shiwen not see through their plan? He just sneered. Inside his body, the Martial Master Seal suddenly flew out and flew above Heaven Talisman Immortal. It rotated, and then infinite energy evolved into a huge martial word, protecting Heaven Talisman Immortal within it. It didn't give the other 2 celestial venerates a chance to intervene. When the 2 people saw that there was no way to kill Yi Shiwen in one blow, they immediately changed their route halfway and directly chased in Yi Shiwen's direction. At this time, Yi Shiwen was already facing the 3 peak celestial venerates. Boom, boom, boom. The fiercest battle broke out almost instantly. The attacks of the 3 peak celestial venerates swept out like a tide, almost drowning Yi Shiwen in an instant. However, Yi Shiwen's hands glowed with golden light, and in an instant, these attacks were torn to pieces. Then his body shook slightly, and actually transformed into a 3-headed and 6-armed Dharma idol, fighting with the 3 peak celestial venerates. Chapter 37:16. Yi Shiwen's body swayed slightly, and he transformed into the 3 heads and 6 arms avatar. His whole body was glowing with golden light, and he looked like an angry Buddha that could subdue demons. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 peak celestial masters from the 3 great eras surrounded Yi Shiwen in an instant. They didn't give him any breathing space at all. It was clear that they wanted to beat Yi Shiwen to death. The joint attack of the 3 was like a storm, and it made the entire world change color. If this wasn't the tomb of the absolute heaven sage, and if it wasn't an ordinary world, it would have been completely smashed into pieces by now. The attacks of these peak heavenly masters could casually attract the power of the laws of heaven and earth. They were already very skilled in fighting for the control of the laws, but the world couldn't withstand such torment. Even so, inexplicable runes constantly emerged to repair the damage caused by the fight between the few of them. However, there were still layers of cracks in the sky, caused by the fight between the few of them. What made the 3 peak heavenly masters even more shocked was that even when facing the joint attack of the 3 peak heavenly masters, Yi Shiwen transformed into 3 heads and 6 arms, and he actually blocked them. Originally, the 3 heads and 6 arms avatar wasn't a great magical power. As long as they wanted, they could divide into thousands of hands. However, in fact, this wasn't much help to their overall strength. Even if they had thousands of hands, the amount of spiritual power that could be deployed in their bodies was limited. It was impossible to increase their strength by thousands of times all at once. In other words, Yishuin could almost compete with the three of them with his strength alone. How could their expressions not change? They knew that Yishuin had killed 5 peak heavenly masters in a row. However, at that time, Yishuin had used the power of the supreme ancestral symbol, and it was clearly not his own strength. Moreover, he had killed them consecutively. It was difficult for Yishuin to fight against several people at the same time with his strength alone. He could only try his best to kill one of them first, and then defeat them one by one. Although he had killed 5 heavenly venerables in succession, he had also been completely spent. There was nothing to worry about. However, it was completely different now. Yishuin had blocked the 3 of them by himself. Moreover, it didn't seem to be difficult at all. In fact, it seemed as if he was doing it with ease. In fact, they had a feeling that it would be very difficult to break his defense, even if there were a few more of them. Boom! There were all kinds of terrifying explosions everywhere, and blazing divine radiance sprinkled down on heaven and earth, making it impossible for people to see clearly. At that moment, the 9th realm demon path heavenly venerate seemed to have been waiting for a long time. At some point in time, a demonic claw had appeared in his hand. He had refined his palm into a heavenly venerate Tao artifact. It could be said to be an extremely horrifying method. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to succeed. Whoosh! An unimaginable wave swept out from behind Yishuin with lightning speed, and his claw directly grabbed onto Yishuin's body. Dang! This demonic claw, which could tear apart heaven and earth, grabbed Yishuin's body. Just as the demon path heavenly venerate thought that Yishuin would be smashed to pieces, he discovered that his attack couldn't continue to fall and break Yishuin's defense. How is this possible? The demon path heavenly venerate couldn't believe it. Although he wasn't a peak heavenly venerate, he wasn't far from it. Even a peak heavenly venerate wouldn't dare to take his attack so carelessly. He simply didn't take him seriously at all. The 3 peak heavenly venerates were also in disbelief. After all, Yishuin's flaw had actually been created by their joint efforts. They had originally thought that they could make Yishuin reveal a flaw and allow the other 2 heavenly venerates to take advantage of it. Although they hadn't communicated with each other before, it wasn't difficult for them to understand this with their battle-hardened experience. Only this level of attack. Are you trying to tickle me? Yishuin sneered. If it had been in the past, he wouldn't have dared to ignore the attack of a 9th realm heavenly venerate, let alone expose a so-called flaw. But now he didn't care. After truly touching that realm, he was already undergoing a rebirth. Under such circumstances, the meritorious tyrant body golden body displayed its ultimate power. Before he finished speaking, his body shook slightly and an incarnation appeared. The incarnation opened its palm, and a ball of golden hepta chi rose from it and rotated rapidly. In the next instant, this ball of golden hepta chi turned into a long blade. Immediately after, this long blade instantly shot out and slashed at the 9th realm heavenly venerate. Whoosh! The speed of this attack was too fast. It contained unimaginable fluctuations of speed, nomological laws that surpassed the speed of the world. It was augmented by speed nomological laws and even-time nomological laws. When the 9th realm demonic era heavenly venerate realized that his attack couldn't even break through Yishuin's defense, he reacted almost immediately and retreated frantically. This was almost driven by his instincts, and he retreated tens of millions of miles. He could instinctively feel a shocking sense of danger surging throughout his body. However, he still couldn't make it in time. In terms of speed, only middle heavenly venerates could match him. In this realm, even Demon Venerable Lihu and the others weren't qualified to challenge him. However, Demon Venerable Lihu and the others wouldn't challenge him in terms of speed. They had their own methods to deal with a middle heavenly venerate who had reached the pinnacle of speed. Boom! This long blade caught up to the 9th realm demon path heavenly venerate, who was retreating in an instant and caused him to explode. The celestial lord from the devil era was directly cut, and his body was torn apart. Blood splashed, and bone fragments flew. His primordial spirit did not explode, but his primordial spirit appeared. There was a long blade in the forehead of his primordial spirit. Endless gung metal chi swept wildly, eroding his primordial spirit. In a short while, it was completely corroded by the gung metal ancestral chi. Even if it was a heavenly venerate, his spirit couldn't be considered eternal. There was always a way to deal with it. It was just that the spirit was usually hidden in the physical body. Without destroying the physical body, it was impossible to deal with the spirit hidden in the body. This was the fundamental secret that made it very difficult to kill a celestial master. However, unfortunately, Yi Shiwen had the terrifying ability to cut through their bodies in an instant. He could also kill their souls in an instant. His physical body was almost immediately grabbed by a big hand and pulled into Yi Shiwen's inner world. "There are 4 left," Yi Shiwen said with a calm look on his face. The incarnation that he had just transformed also poured into his body. If the crowd hadn't felt much before, they couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end after hearing Yi Shiwen count them one by one. Who didn't know how to count down? However, every time he counted down, it would take a life. This kind of countdown was truly terrifying. The key was Yi Shiwen's casual manner, as if he had just casually said a number. The 8th Realm Ghost era Heavenly Venerate was so scared that he didn't dare to make a move. What a joke. How could he play? What happened to the exchange of blows? What happened to the exchange of thousands of moves? In just one move, a demonic era Heavenly Venerate, who was much stronger than him, was instantly killed. Since he appeared, 3 high-level Heavenly Venerates had died. The speed at which they died was also frighteningly fast. Each of them was killed in one move. Even a peak Heavenly Venerate hadn't seen this kind of killing efficiency before, which scared him. Who would be able to stop such a shocking speed of killing? The 3 peak Heavenly Venerates also felt the pressure of a mountain. Eastern Heavenly Venerate, I will kill you. Demon Venerate Luoho let out an earth-shattering roar. His voice was filled with sorrow. Yi Shiwen had killed another 9th Realm Heavenly Venerate right in front of him. These were the true pillars of the demonic era. Even if all the Emperor Lords of the demonic era died, they wouldn't be as important as these Heavenly Venerates. "Aha, well done, cough, cough." The middle Heavenly Venerate's voice was heard. However, he had just finished speaking when he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he was hit by the furious Demon Venerate Luoho. He was sent flying for millions of miles, and his face turned even paler. However, his eyes burned with an even more vigorous fighting spirit and will to live. Previously, he had thought that he had no hope. However, Yi Shiwen's shocking efficiency in killing 3 Heavenly Venerates in one move gave birth to endless thoughts. Perhaps surviving this time was not just wishful thinking. His life's source burned even more brilliantly, and his strength recovered a little more. This was no different from quenching thirst with poison. However, he also knew that there was no better way. If he persisted until Yi Shiwen arrived, there would be hope. Otherwise, he would die. Therefore, there was nothing to worry about at this time. "Must kill me." Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. "I will first kill another Heavenly Venerate of your demonic era. Your demonic era is the most active in this matter. You're jumping up and down. Do you really think that everyone from the martial era is dead? I will let you know now that there is a price to pay for your wishful thinking." Yi Shiwen had just finished speaking when he stopped using the 3 heads and 6 arms magic ability. He spread his arms, and boundless magic power erupted from his body. Pah! His 5 fingers clenched into a fist and turned into a golden dragon that instantly swept towards the peak Heavenly Venerate of the demonic era. Chapter 37:17. Yi Shiwen's entire body was glowing, distorting the void. The radiance of the 3,000 martial path was exuding blazing radiance. This radiance turned into a terrifying aura field. Whoosh! His figure flickered, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of the peak Heavenly Master of the Devil era. Yi Shiwen was going all out. His speed was too fast. He was not inferior to the middle Heavenly Master, who was invincible in this domain. He was even more tyrannical than the Middle Heavenly Master. This was Yi Shiwen's fighting style. Fast, fast, fast. How can he be so fast? The peak Heavenly Master of the Devil era was almost scared to death by Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen had shown enough fighting strength to fight one-on-one, he had not shown such terrifying speed. His speed had already entered the domain of time. It was extremely terrifying. He did his best. Countless magic spells flew out. All kinds of magical powers and martial arts belonging to the Devil era were used. They smashed towards Yi Shiwen like a raging tide. It was not to attack. It was just to block Yi Shiwen's attack. From the previous exchange, he knew that this level of attack could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen's next move made him turn pale with fright. Yi Shiwen only used extreme speed to smash all his attacks into powder. He could not stop Yi Shiwen's advancing speed at all. For the first time, he understood how terrifying speed could be when it was raised to the extreme. Although Demon Venerable Liu and the other two were besieging the Middle Heavenly Master, they had nothing to do with him. Therefore, he did not face them directly. Now that he faced them directly, he could not help but feel a huge pressure. All of this took a long time to describe, but it all happened in just a moment. Bang! The peak Heavenly Master of the Devil era let out a muffled groan. His entire body was hit by Yi Shiwen, who had reached absolute speed. One could imagine how terrifying this power was. The peak Heavenly Master of the Devil era even screamed and collapsed. Blood mist swirled. He was seriously injured in an instant. This kind of fighting style had extremely high requirements for one's physical cultivation. Otherwise, it would be a method that hurt both sides. However, it was clear that this peak Heavenly Venerate of the Demon Path epoch was far inferior to Yi Shiwen, even though his physical body cultivation was quite high. The outcome of the collision was decided in an instant. He was heavily injured and sent flying. Emperor, trampling the world. Yi Shiwen shouted and stomped on the peak Celestial Master of the Devil Path era, who had been smashed to pieces. However, the other two peak Heavenly Venerables of the Magical Ability era and the Ghost Path era also reacted very quickly. They knew that they couldn't let Yi Shiwen continue to slaughter them. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. The two of them attacked Yi Shiwen from the left and right. The great techniques of the Ghost Path era and the Magical Ability era instantly erupted at this time. They directly pierced through the space and made the entire space chaotic. The two of them broke free from the encirclement of the martial arts incarnation that Yi Shiwen had split out earlier and directly attacked Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had no choice but to stop. His body radiated golden light that filled the sky. However, he didn't panic. He just sneered and said, "Since you want to die first, then I will fulfill your wish." Whoosh! Yi Shiwen disappeared from where he was. The attacks of the two of them directly collided. They couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. When Yi Shiwen reappeared, he was already in front of the Ghost Path era's peak Heavenly Venerate. He attacked again. His speed instantly surpassed the speed of light, and the timeline was in chaos. His fist pierced through the space, causing the timeline to shake violently. Boom! Although the Ghost Path era's peak Heavenly Venerate was already prepared, all his defenses were instantly pierced. It was too fast, so fast that it affected everything. Puffed! Although the Ghost Path era's peak Heavenly Venerate had already retreated millions of miles when his attack missed, he still couldn't avoid this punch and was swept by the fist energy. His body flew out like a meteor, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes widened, and he felt as though his body had fallen apart. There wasn't a single part of his body that didn't hurt. Even the fist energy that Yi Shiwen blasted out had spread throughout his body, and it was very difficult to expel it. Too fast. The Ghost Path era's peak Heavenly Venerate seemed to finally understand why the Devil Path era's peak Heavenly Venerate was so vulnerable. There's one more left. As soon as Yi Shiwen's voice fell, he once again appeared in front of the last Magical Ability era's peak Heavenly Venerate. The Magical Ability era's peak Heavenly Venerate suddenly emitted hundreds of magical ability lights, completely protecting himself. He had already realized that things weren't looking good, but the problem was that Yi Shiwen didn't give him any chance to escape and take a breather. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast, and he didn't stay on the other side at all. With just a simple punch, he severely injured the two great heavenly venerates. So this was Yi Shiwen's fundamental strength? Everything they had seen before was actually a mistake. However, it was obvious that there wouldn't be any difference between him and the other two, because Yi Shiwen's strength had clearly surpassed them by one level. He had already touched that legendary realm. Boom! Yi Shiwen also used a simple punch to penetrate the magical ability era's peak heavenly venerate's defense. All his defenses were like tofu in brine in front of Yi Shiwen's absolute attack. They weren't a match at all. Yi Shiwen had already completely integrated the seventh metal ancestral chi into his body. It could be said that he was very tyrannical in both offense and defense. Especially in terms of offense, it was even more successful. This was also why a simple straight punch could have such great power. It was comparable to the power of a heavenly venerate Tao artifact. Puff! The magical ability era's peak heavenly venerate spat out a mouthful of blood essence, which then turned into a magical ability. In the next moment, the peak heavenly venerate disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he was already tens of millions of miles away. Although he didn't move very far, he still managed to avoid Yi Shiwen's fatal blow. This was a divine ability that he had signed up for. He had burned his blood essence in order to avoid this fatal blow. However, it was obvious that the price for this move was very high. Although he had managed to escape with his life, his face was pale. That mouthful of blood essence was something that he had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. It was the most precious blood of the heart, so he wouldn't use this move casually. If he used it, his vitality would be greatly damaged. However, he had no other choice. If he didn't do this, he was afraid that he would really die in Yi Shiwen's hands. Judging from Yi Shiwen's usual fear situation, it wasn't impossible for this to happen. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it only took a few breaths. The three great heavenly venerates, who were originally besieging Yi Shiwen, were already severely injured. How is this possible? The eighth realm ghost, Tao, era's heavenly venerate was completely scared silly. The attack power that Yi Shiwen displayed at this time was simply shocking. Yi Shiwen was a peak heavenly venerate that he could only dream of. Not every heavenly venerate had the hope of cultivating to the ninth realm, let alone become one of the best and become a peak heavenly venerate. However, even if he became a peak heavenly venerate, he would be severely injured in one move in front of Yi Shiwen. That kind of terrifying attack power was simply inhuman. Moreover, he could see that Yi Shiwen had not yet stepped into the ninth realm because he didn't have some of the characteristics of a true ninth realm cultivator. Just like him, he was only in the eighth realm. However, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. They simply didn't seem to be in the same realm. This was also the first time he realized that the eighth realm could also be so tyrannical. Even Heaven Talisman Immortal was dumbfounded. Previously, Yi Shiwen said that as long as he was here, no one would die. She only thought that he could rescue them. It was already very difficult for them to escape safely. However, now it seemed that Yi Shiwen clearly didn't mean to let them escape unscathed. They wouldn't die. Instead, he meant to kill all the experts of the three great ancient eras. That way, they wouldn't die. Although the result was the same, the entire process was actually completely different. It couldn't be considered as the same concept at all. Not to mention Heaven Talisman Immortal. Even Demon Venerable Lu and the other two were completely dumbfounded. Not to mention that they had to kill the middle heavenly venerate as soon as possible to besiege Yi Shiwen. It should be said that they had to kill the middle heavenly venerate before their people died. Otherwise, they might really let Yi Shiwen slaughter all the heavenly venerates. The price of killing or injuring a peak heavenly venerate was too high. It could even rise to the level of harming the vitality of this era. Damn it! Seeing that Yi Shiwen was about to attack again, no matter which of the four celestial masters he attacked, the final result would be unacceptable to them. Demon Venerable Luo Ho subconsciously made a decision and directly rushed towards Yishuan to kill. Anyway, the middle heavenly venerate was only a breath away. As long as he was trapped to death, there would be no problem. Whoosh! Suddenly, the shadow of the middle heavenly venerate appeared in front of him. The spiritual power of the middle heavenly venerate was burning, and one could even see traces of golden blood. This was the result of him erupting to the extreme. His body couldn't bear it and began to crack. Although it wasn't as overbearing as the supreme ancestral symbol, it was still a very terrifying injury. You want to go over? Have you asked me? Today, even if I have to risk my life, I will kill all of you here. Although the middle heavenly venerate didn't cooperate with Yishuan, he naturally understood what the consequences would be if he allowed them to pass at this time. Chapter 37:18. The situation had been completely reversed. Previously, they were blocking the middle heavenly venerables and preventing them from coming out. Now, the situation had been completely reversed. He was the one blocking the three of them. It was impossible to defeat the three of them. However, it was still possible to block them. Although he would have to pay a higher price, he felt that it was still possible. Get lost! Demon Venerable Luoho shouted. The long saber in his hand slashed down like a mountain. The saber aura crossed thousands of miles. The middle heavenly venerable increased his speed to the extreme. He did not want to fight Demon Venerable Luoho. He knew that it was not a good idea to fight Demon Venerable Luoho. However, before Demon Venerable Luoho could relax, he saw the middle heavenly venerable entangling him again. He also understood that the middle heavenly venerable only had one thought, which was to stall him. At this time, it was not just Demon Venerable Luoho. Even Thunder Fire Divine Venerable and Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerable could not sit still. If they continued to wait, it was very likely that the peak heavenly venerables of their era would also be killed. Both Thunder Fire Divine Venerable and Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerable began to fly towards another battlefield at the same time. However, when they were about to move forward, they found that the middle heavenly venerable was blocking in front of them. The middle heavenly venerable increased his speed to the extreme. It could be said that this was his special ability. He was completely above them and blocked three of them at once. Three middle heavenly venerables appeared in front of them at the same time. These three middle heavenly venerables were not incarnations, but their real bodies. It was only after their speed had been raised to the extreme that they became like this. How dare you play this trick in front of us? You want to block the three of us alone? Thunder Fire Divine Venerable was furious. This was a provocation to the three of them. In other words, he did not care about the three of them at all. I am blocking you to send you on your way. The middle heavenly venerable was also unyielding. He also had his own pride and self-esteem. He could not allow Demon Venerable Luoho and the other two to go over. They had reached the most critical moment, but they were defeated here. What was this? I can't hold him for long. You have to hurry. The middle heavenly venerable's voice was transmitted into Yi Shiwen's mind. He could see that he was indeed an arrow at the end of its flight. This amount of time is enough, Yishuan said coldly. He moved again. This time, his target was the Ghost Path Era's 8th Realm Celestial Master, who didn't even dare to make a move. Although he didn't dare to make a move, he still decided to eliminate any future troubles to avoid any accidents. Although he wasn't afraid, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable was clearly in his weakest state right now. Under the protection of the Martial Venerable Seal, Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable could focus on recovering. He did not need to worry about the aftershocks of the battle affecting him. But this did not mean that Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable was truly safe. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable had barely escaped from the brink of death, and he was in his weakest state. Any random Empyrean could seriously injure her or even kill her. She was much weaker than when Yishuan had first seen her. At that time, she still had the strength to fight an ordinary Empyrean. But now, she didn't even have the strength to fight an ordinary Empyrean. Any Empyrean could take her life. The peak Ghost Path era's 8th realm, Celestial Master, didn't expect Yi Shiwen to ignore the 3 peak Heavenly Venerables and attack him first. It could be said that he was completely defenseless, or rather, the means he had prepared were completely meaningless in front of Yi Shiwen. Bang! After Yi Shiwen raised his speed to the extreme, he easily smashed the Ghost Path era's Heavenly Venerables' Divine Kingdom. The ghosts and deities in the Divine Kingdom who had already confirmed their Tao and become deities were also powerless to fight back at this time. They turned into nothingness one after another. In fact, Yi Shiwen didn't even need to use any powerful magical powers or means. He could easily break through his defense. The Ghost Path era's Heavenly Venerable spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, his body was smashed into pieces in an instant. Yi Shiwen's speed had reached the pinnacle, and his body had become the most dreadful weapon that could smash everything in its path. In practically an instant, this collision caused his millions of years of bitter cultivation to vanish without a trace. Not a single trace of it remained. However, he wasn't as lucky as those peak Heavenly Venerables because no one could save him. Yi Shiwen just lifted his foot and stomped down. The void was trampled into powder, and his spirit was also trampled into nothingness. His body was also crushed by Yi Shiwen and poured onto the world tree. Yi Shiwen sneered. That ghost epic Heavenly Venerate couldn't understand why Yi Shiwen would kill him, and he would never understand why Yi Shiwen would kill him or the 3 peak Heavenly Venerates. There was essentially no difference between Yi Shiwen killing him or those 3 peak Heavenly Venerates first. It was just a difference of killing him earlier or later. For Yi Shiwen, the 3 peak Heavenly Venerables weren't a match for him, so he had nothing to worry about. However, taking advantage of the time that Yi Shiwen killed the Ghost Path era's Heavenly Venerable, the 3 peak Heavenly Venerables finally got a chance to catch their breath and recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. These 3 peak Heavenly Venerables had either used their secret techniques or used the life-saving divine medicine that they had been hiding and wouldn't use easily. They knew that if they didn't use it now, they might not have another chance. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, they finally used it. Have you all recovered? But still useless. At most, it will delay your deaths. The magic power burning on Yi Shiwen's body became even more vigorous. The void around him distorted, and he could even faintly see the silhouette of the River of Time. He had already grasped the time and space laws and fused them together. From this point of view, he had already surpassed the time and space Heavenly Venerables, who had been his greatest enemy. A terrifying aura rose into the sky, like waves of surging tides, surging out. I'll start with you first. Yi Shiwen looked at the peak Heavenly Venerable from the Devil Path era. Just now, Demon Venerable Lu had said that he would definitely kill him. Yi Shiwen wanted to start with this peak Heavenly Venerable from the Devil Path era. Anyway, he had already killed many of them, so he didn't care about this. As soon as Yi Shiwen's voice fell, his figure had already appeared behind the peak Heavenly Venerable from the Devil Path era. In his hand, the Gung Metal Ancestral Chi transformed into a long blade and slashed down. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. The terrifying speed exceeded everyone's expectations. The peak Heavenly Venerable from the Devil Path era actually reacted. Although he was still a lot slower than Yi Shiwen, he still had the ability to fight back. He let out a long roar and condensed all the magic power in his body, turning into a terrifying phantom. It was the shadow of the Devil Path era that firmly locked him in. You want to kill me? It won't be that easy. The peak Heavenly Venerable from the Devil Path era looked a bit proud. It was impossible for him to compete with Yi Shiwen in speed. At Yi Shiwen's level, he could defeat them with just his speed alone. Unless they could also step into that realm, there was no way they could compete with him. However, he had already made preparations. As long as Yi Shiwen attacked, he would immediately protect himself. At this moment, he no longer hoped that he could defeat Yi Shiwen. His biggest hope was to stall Yi Shiwen and buy enough time for Demon Venerable Lu and the other two. As long as Demon Venerable Lu killed the middle Heavenly Venerable and rushed over, the outcome would be decided in his opinion. However, He didn't expect that the phantom that he had formed with all his strength and all the magic power in his body would be completely destroyed by Yi Shiwen's blade. Puff! His technique was destroyed. Almost instantly, he spat out a mouthful of blood and suffered a powerful backlash. How could this be? Before he finished speaking, he saw that Yi Shiwen's Gung Jinlong blade was almost unhindered. It split the space in half, and the direction in which the spatial crack was spreading was also in his direction. Puff! He was almost unable to fight back. His blade was destroyed. He couldn't stop Yi Shiwen's blade at all. The peak heavenly venerable from the Devil Path era screamed continuously. His spirit was ignited by the Gung Jin ancestral chi. The sky was burning with golden blood, and he was instantly turned into nothingness. His physical body was also grabbed by Yi Shiwen. Roar! A furious roar was heard. Who else could it be but Demon Venerable Lohu? Previously, he wanted to protect the peak heavenly venerable from the Devil Path era. However, the fact was that he was stalled by the middle heavenly venerable. Although it wasn't that he didn't make any progress, he obviously couldn't keep up with Yi Shiwen's killing speed. In just a breath's time, Yi Shiwen had successfully killed the peak heavenly venerable. Even if he didn't admit it, at the very least, they had to recognize the fact that the current Yi Shiwen possessed terrifying strength that wasn't inferior to theirs. Killing a peak heavenly venerable was also very easy. It wasn't inferior to the battle when the middle heavenly venerable had easily suppressed the Moon City Lord. Wu Zun, I will definitely make you die without a burial place. Yi Shiwen heard the roar of Demon Venerable Lu. He just sneered and said, "You want to kill me? Come over first." There are still 2 left. Yi Shiwen was calm and indifferent as he said, "Your idea is good. You're always in a defensive state so that I can't take advantage of you. However, you've forgotten one thing. That is, all your schemes are just a joke in front of true absolute strength." Chapter 37:19. Yi Shiwen's terrifying massacre made the remaining peak heavenly venerables from the magical ability era and the Ghost Dao era nervous. At this time, it was obvious that Yi Shiwen had gone berserk. Whoever stood in front of him would die. Such an attitude was rampant and infuriating. Yi Shiwen's killing intent boiled even more as he possessed such strength. He didn't just want to rescue the middle heavenly venerables and senior heavenly talisman immortal. He clearly intended to kill all of them. What balance between the 2 sides? What apprehension of the revenge of the ancient eras? None of these were valid in his eyes. For him, it was simply unreasonable and overbearing. Daring to provoke the Fortune God Dynasty, daring to encircle and kill the Fortune God Dynasty's experts was courting death. On the other hand, being killed by the Fortune God Dynasty was just what they deserved. And now, Yi Shiwen was giving people a kind of incomparably overbearing feeling. However, this feeling made them feel sullen and helpless, because Yi Shiwen was too strong, so strong that it was difficult for them to even think of killing him. This feeling was similar to the time when Fortune God Monarch Heaven was still alive. At that time, the Fortune God Dynasty was the true peak, suppressing many ancient eras and truly ruling the world. Even those ancient eras had to lower their heads in front of Fortune God Monarch Heaven. He was too strong. He had dazzled countless eras. He could beat whoever he wanted and cut off whoever dared to show up. It wasn't that there weren't ancient eras that were more powerful than the Devil Dao era, but they were all destroyed. It was in this endless slaughter that the Fortune Heavenly Monarch had established his unparalleled reputation, and the Fortune Divine Dynasty had the unparalleled might it had today. There was even a rumor that there was a ruler-level expert in the ancient eras. He was alarmed by the Fortune God Dynasty's attack, and directly went to find Fortune God Monarch Heaven. But in the end, the ruler-level expert retreated. Since then, no one had dared to defy the Fortune Heavenly Monarch's decree. Even after the Fortune Heavenly Monarch had left, no ancient era had dared to provoke the Fortune Divine Dynasty. One could imagine how powerful the Fortune Heavenly Monarch was in the past. Yi Shiwen was also aware of these things. Therefore, he had always maintained a balance. He didn't agree with the method of dawdling. He would kill whoever was dissatisfied. He would kill whoever jumped out. If 1 or 2 people were dissatisfied, he would kill 1 or 2 people. If 1 or 200 million people were dissatisfied, he would kill 1 or 200 million people until they lowered their heads. This was the correct path because he knew that these ancient epics were at most submissive on the surface. There was a fundamental conflict of interest between the two sides. The more the other side died, the more they could live. As long as there was no way to reconcile such interests, they would be mortal enemies. Because of this, the overbearing and domineering Yi Shiwen reminded them of the terrifying person who had forced countless celestial masters to bow down to him. Retreat first. Don't fight him head-on. Go and deal with the middle celestial master first. He's the only one left. What can he do? The Divine Ability Era's peak celestial master said. He wouldn't say that he was afraid of Yi Shiwen's merciless killing. If they were in Yi Shiwen's shoes, they would also be afraid. Okay. As for that peak Empyrean from the Ghost Dao epic, he was just forcefully holding on. The peak Empyrean who was on the same level as them had been easily dealt with by Yi Shiwen. How could they contend against him? The two of them made a decision in an instant. They retreated in the direction of Demon Master Luoho and the other two. Want to leave? Do you think you can leave now? Yi Shiwen's body slightly swayed and directly transformed into 2 figures. Then, he chased after the 2 of them. This wasn't a clone. Instead, it was formed purely by raising the speed law to the extreme. It was just like the middle celestial master blocking Demon Master Luoho and the other 2. The 2 were scared out of their wits. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Yi Shiwen chased after them at the same time. Damn it, don't be too arrogant. The magical ability era's peak celestial master couldn't help but roar when he saw that Yi Shiwen was about to catch up. He turned around and punched. This punch was like a beam of light that swept across the world. You're overestimating yourself. Yi Shiwen sneered and also punched. However, Yi Shiwen's punch was obviously more terrifying than the magical ability era's peak celestial master. In an instant, the world changed color. The era distorted. Even the entire tomb trembled slightly. Bang! The 2 fists collided fiercely. Then, the magical ability era's peak celestial master screamed. His entire arm turned into a bloody mist. He couldn't get close at all. He instantly suffered a big loss in the collision with Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's actions wouldn't stop at this level. Sky-flipping seal. Yi Shiwen formed a seal that was as huge as a sacred mountain in his hand. Then he suddenly slammed it down. Bang! The magical ability era's peak celestial master had no way to resist. He couldn't even set up a defense. He had already been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen just now. His entire body didn't even fall apart. Instead, it turned into a bloody mist. One could imagine how terrifying the power of Yi Shiwen's attack was. He couldn't resist it at all. Then a ray of light tore through the sky and swept across instantly. It was the Gung metal ancestral chi that slashed the magical ability era's peak celestial master spirit. In an instant, it was directly cut into nothingness. It was too tragic. A peak celestial master couldn't even resist a few of Yi Shiwen's moves. He couldn't contend with Yi Shiwen. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Ghost Path era's peak celestial master was about to reach the battlefield of Demon Venerable Lu and the others. He even wanted to sneak attack a middle celestial master from behind. However, before he could reveal a smile, he saw that Yi Shiwen had already appeared in front of him and blocked his way. It's a little too late to think of leaving now. Yi Shiwen's voice was cold as he strolled over. He seemed slow, but he was actually very fast. In just a moment, he had already arrived in front of the peak celestial master. Damn it! The Ghost Path era's peak celestial master cursed. However, he also knew that if he couldn't defeat Yi Shiwen, he probably wouldn't be able to get help from Demon Venerable Lu and the others. Although there was only a thin line between them, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. In particular, the middle celestial master was doing his best to block Demon Venerable Lu and the others. Although it was getting more and more difficult, he still didn't let the 3 of them take a step forward. Suddenly, the Ghost Path era's peak celestial master transformed into his original appearance. He was a ferocious ghost with a green face and fangs. One could even faintly see the magical abilities of other eras mixed in this ferocious ghost's body. The Ghost Path era itself wasn't an era born under ordinary circumstances. It should be said that it had directly evolved from the previous era. Many Ghost Path era's peak celestial master had simply evolved from the death of the previous era's powerful creatures. At this moment, the Ghost Path era's peak celestial master had shown some signs. However, these signs had already been completely refined into a magical ability unique to the Ghost Path era. This ferocious ghost with a green face and fangs was indomitable. It was as if he was the creator of the world. He had unimaginable power. Roar! With a loud roar, this malicious ghost transformed into its original body. It was obviously much more terrifying. With a roar, its whole body rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen could clearly feel that the Ghost Path era's peak celestial master's strength had soared. It should be said that his origin had been stimulated. But it's a pity that I haven't touched that realm. I just haven't touched that realm. Yi Shiwen shook his head and sighed. Then he moved. Whoosh! He once again raised his speed to the extreme and rushed in front of this ferocious ghost in an instant. This ferocious ghost opened its huge ghost claws and grabbed at Yi Shiwen. In an instant, a huge cage was formed between heaven and earth. It imprisoned space and time. No one could break free from this cage. This was an extremely terrifying magical ability. Child's play. Yi Shiwen sneered and spread his arms. Then, his hands emitted a golden light that filled the sky, as if they were cast from gold. Then his hands suddenly tore, and the huge ghost claw cage was instantly torn into pieces. Even the ghost claws of this ferocious ghost were torn into nothingness in an instant. It was killed in an instant and turned into a cloud of blood mist that exploded. This ferocious ghost was blasted back in an instant. It was severely injured in an instant. Yi Shiwen continued to work hard. He directly leaped and rushed in front of the ferocious ghost. His hands emitted a terrifying light and fluctuations of martial arts laws. In an instant, he had already penetrated this ferocious ghost. His speed was too fast. In many cases, when one's speed was raised to the extreme, it itself represented an unparalleled attack method. Puff! This ferocious ghost spurted a mouthful of blood and looked at the huge hole in its chest. It still couldn't believe it, because it was too easy. It was a simple method, but it was enough to kill. This was an existence on a completely different level. Therefore, no matter what methods it had, it was meaningless in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's methods and abilities had already surpassed this level. Before it could think further, its entire body had been wrapped in a cloud of golden light. Then, it suddenly tore into two halves. Even its spirit was torn into pieces and turned into a blood mist that was poured into the world tree. At this time, the world tree in the inner world was also becoming more and more lively. It seemed as if it would never stop. What energy was continuously spewing out, nourishing Yi Shiwen's inner world and nourishing the world tree fruit at the same time. It was not far from the time when it would mature again. Chapter 37:20. Yi Shiwen wiped out the remaining two peak heavenly venerables with lightning speed. He did it almost effortlessly. However, it was also because of this that Demon Venerable Luo Ho and the other two great masters were going crazy. The weakest among those who had been slaughtered by Yi Shiwen was a high-level heavenly master of the seventh realm. They were the essence of the entire era. So, it was needless to say that they were peak heavenly masters. In particular, the demonic epic had lost 3 peak heavenly venerates, as well as other high-level heavenly venerates. Although the peak heavenly venerates he had found before were not demonic epic heavenly venerates, there was no doubt that they were biased towards the demonic epic or had some sort of friendship with them. Otherwise, how could a single supreme ancestral symbol make them risk their lives for them? After all, the Fortune God dynasty was not dead yet. But now, they all died at Yi Shiwen's hands. This was a huge blow to their vitality. This was even greater than when they attacked Moon City. Although many demonic epic experts had died at that time, in the hundreds of millions, Moon City was a divine city that had existed for many years. Even though it had fallen, the resistance was still fierce. But those were just cannon fodder. They could not compare to the direct casualties of these elites. I will make your martial epic pay the price. Demon Venerable Luoho roared furiously. The saber in his hand slammed into the middle heavenly venerate like a dragon. This time, the middle heavenly venerate could not dodge. He grunted and was sent flying. Even someone as strong as him was struck by the saber, nearly splitting his body in half. He was finally at the end of his rope. All the light on his body faded away. He was just a dying man. The moment the middle heavenly venerate was struck, the two clones blocking Thunder Fire Divine and Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerate also disappeared. This was because these were not true clones. Instead, they were a mystic ability created after the speed law was pushed to the limit. They were just fast enough. This could not be helped. If he had just created a clone normally, Thunder Fire Divine and Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerate would have broken it in no time. In the end, a clone was just a clone. However, the clones conjured from the speed laws were his true body. The three figures that were blocking Divine Thunder Fire Supremacy, Sun Eclipse Ghost Supremacy, and Demon Supremacy Rahu were all his true bodies. However, once they were defeated, the three of them would vanish at the same time. This was the situation. I'll kill you first. Demon Lord Rahu was unable to restrain his rage. His rage surged up into the sky, and the long saber in his hand cleaved the world apart. He wanted to vent all of the pin-up rage that he had suppressed earlier. Bang! This strike landed, but it didn't land on the middle heavenly venerate's body. A figure appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen raised his hand and waved his hand to send the blade flying. The two of them didn't use any extreme divine abilities or techniques. They were simply using their own magic power and abilities to fight. However, this single exchange had completely changed the strength of both sides. Once upon a time, Yi Shiwen could only flee in defeat when facing Demon Venerable O. Once upon a time, Yi Shiwen had to exert his full strength when facing Demon Venerable Lu's incarnation. Not so long ago, Demon Venerable Luo Ho might have been able to kill Yi Shiwen just by extending his hand. However, everything had changed now. Yi Shiwen could casually break Demon Venerable Luo Ho's attack. If it had been in the past, he might have had to enter the state of human harmonization to resist this attack with all his might. But now, he could easily break Demon Venerable Luo Ho's attack with a simple wave of his hand. In the next instant, Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord and Thunder Fire Divinity had already surrounded Yi Shiwen. Are you alright? Yi Shiwen didn't care about the three people surrounding him and asked the middle heavenly venerate. Cough, cough, you came just in time. If you came any later, I would have died. However, you didn't let me down. Ha 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 ha. The middle heavenly venerate laughed while coughing blood. However, he felt extremely carefree. Yi Shiwen had allowed him to vent the anger in his heart. He was a dignified middle heavenly venerate and an invincible existence in the Fortune God dynasty. As a fellow deputy lord, when had he ever been in such a sorry state? If he hadn't been severely injured earlier, how could he have ended up in such a sorry state? In fact, he had even been forced to the point of almost dying. This time, if Yi Shiwen hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Just some useless chickens and dogs. Yi Shiwen waved his hand, and a fire phoenix flew out from his palm and directly flew into the body of the middle heavenly venerate. The injuries on the middle heavenly venerate's body were much better immediately. Although he was still on the verge of death, he wasn't like before, where he could stop breathing at any time. There was an obvious improvement. The middle heavenly venerate wasn't an ordinary person. Almost immediately, his injuries gradually recovered, and waves of spiritual power rose from his body. On the other side, Demon Venerable Luo Ho and the other two weren't in a hurry to attack Yi Shiwen, especially Demon Venerable Luo Ho. He looked at Yi Shiwen and said, I didn't expect you to become so strong in the end. Unlike the other two, he didn't dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen from the beginning. From the beginning, He could be said to have used his killer moves frequently. Facing a heavenly venerate that wasn't even in the ninth realm, he actually sent out 5 peak heavenly venerates. Such a lineup couldn't be said to be underestimating. However, even so, Yi Shiwen still managed to reverse the situation. All the way until now, Yi Shiwen was still on equal footing with them. Thinking about how he learned from the Moon City Lord that Yi Shiwen had risen in a very short time, the killing intent in his heart almost couldn't be suppressed. Yi Shiwen was so strong. Even if he didn't make any progress in the future, he would still be in existence like a middle heavenly venerate. If he took one step further, it was likely that he would be in existence of a half-step sovereign. Although such an existence couldn't compare to a sovereign-level expert, such an existence could be said to be invincible in an era that no one could resist. Because not all eras would give birth to a sovereign-level expert. Many ancient eras, from the beginning to the end, even at their most glorious times, only had a half-step sovereign-level expert. If Yi Shiwen took one step further, for many eras, he would already be at the end. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to think highly of such a person. If it wasn't for your Devil Path era's repeated attempts to kill me, I don't think I would have improved so quickly. Yi Shiwen said faintly. What he said was the truth. If it wasn't for the Devil Path era's repeated attempts, he wouldn't have been able to push his potential to this point and ultimately become an existence on equal footing with Demon Venerate Luoho and the others. However, your good luck ends here. Today, I definitely won't let you escape. Demon Venerate Luoho said coldly. I will stop him. The two of you deal with the middle heavenly venerate first. Then, the three of us will join forces to deal with him. This fiend is growing too quickly. We definitely can't let him continue to grow. Otherwise, we will all be in trouble. Hearing Demon Venerate Luoho's words, Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerate and Thunder Fire Divine Venerate nodded one after another. Their expressions were grave and filled with boundless killing intent. Previously, they had thought that Demon Venerate Luoho's blatant attempt to kill Yi Shiwen was purely superfluous. Now, they no longer thought so. Yi Shiwen's current performance was already terrifying enough. If he was allowed to continue to grow, he would inevitably become a huge threat to their plan. The collapse of the martial epoch was a feast. For those old half-step sovereigns, this was related to whether they would have the opportunity to step into the sovereign level. For them, this was also related to whether they would be able to advance further and become half-step sovereigns. This was also the fundamental reason why, although they were forced to come here by those old half-step sovereigns, they still put in so much effort. This was because it was beneficial to their era and not harmful to them. Now that Yi Shiwen dared to block their way, he was an existence that they had to kill. You want to pass through me? Yi Shiwen sneered. He had long known that once he made a move, the middle heavenly venerate and heaven talisman immortal would definitely become his weaknesses. However, he had no other choice. The three of them were not ordinary peak heavenly venerates. They were existences that had come into contact with that realm, just like him. They were far more terrifying than ordinary peak heavenly venerates. The divine ability epoch's heavenly venerate glowed from head to toe. All sorts of divine ability lights danced around and boundless nomological laws. This was their divine ability epoch's supreme secret technique. Each of these divine ability epochs heavenly venerate could evolve into an incomparably terrifying attack. In an instant, he made his move, directly charging towards the middle heavenly venerate. At this time, the middle heavenly venerate was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He could not withstand even a single heavy blow. One hit and he would be dead for sure. This was also the fundamental reason why the divine ability epic heavenly venerate had made his move. On the other side, Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord also roared and transformed into his original body of a malicious spirit. His body was as huge as an ancient sacred mountain. He suddenly opened his mouth, and endless spiritual energy surged into his body like a raging tide. Immediately after, his body moved slightly, and suddenly, like a Kuan Peng spreading its wings, directly smashing the void. At the same time, he also pounced in the direction of the middle heavenly venerate. Yi Shiwen was just about to make his move, but in front of him, demon venerate Luo Ho took a step forward. His terrifying divine sense firmly locked onto Yi Shiwen as he said coldly, "As long as I am here, you can forget about saving him." Although demon venerate Luo Ho's speed was inferior to Yi Shiwen and the middle heavenly venerate, he was also an existence that had cultivated a nomological law to the extreme. He naturally had a way to deal with Yi Shiwen and the middle heavenly venerate who had raised their speed to the extreme. Yi Shiwen could instantly feel that it would be very difficult to shake off demon venerate Luo Ho. "You want to stop me?" Yi Shiwen roared loudly. Immediately after, a shocking scene occurred. In front of Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord and Thunder Fire Divinity, a Yi Shiwen appeared. It was the great technique that the middle heavenly venerate had used previously. Chapter 37:21. Originally, this was a mystique produced by the middle heavenly venerate after raising his speed to the extreme. Now, it had reappeared on Yi Shiwen's body. Similarly, there were 3 people blocking the trio. This was also the confidence of the middle heavenly venerate. Be it a one-on-one or a group battle, there was nothing to be afraid of. The 3 Izaiwans moved at the same time. The Yi Shiwen in front of the divine ability, heavenly venerate, blasted out with a punch. Countless nomological laws splashed out, forming a terrifying tornado that caused the galaxy to collapse. It blasted into the countless mystiques that the divine ability, heavenly venerate, had blasted out. All sorts of divine marks danced around. In an instant, the mystiques were blasted into smithereens, and the gods that these mystiques had manifested were also reduced to nothingness. The Yi Shiwen in front of the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had also manifested the Dharma World mystique. He was as tall as the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord and was not inferior in the slightest. He flipped the sky flipping seal in his hand and slammed it down on the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord. Boom! Although this move was unable to do anything to the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord, it managed to block the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord's attack. He actually dared to use this move again. Rahu Demon Venerable's anger rose to the extreme. Just now, he had been blocked by the middle heavenly venerate with this move. He could only watch helplessly as the experts of their era perished just like that. Now, Yi Shiwen actually dared to use the same move in front of them. How could he not be enraged? He only felt that he had been fooled. Boundless energy erupted from the demonic saber in his hand. At this moment, he became extremely dangerous. The nomological laws of the demon Tao era wrapped around his body with unimaginably terrifying might. Then, he slashed down with his saber. The saber radiance traversed across the universe, and the saber aura spanned millions of miles. It was much more terrifying than the saber that he had slashed at the middle heavenly venerate previously. This saber was unleashed in anger. Just a single slash was enough to tear apart the entire world and turn the galaxy into dust. It was incomparably terrifying. In the face of such an attack, Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. He stretched out his arms. Although he did not have a Celestial Master Tao artifact in his hand, he still had Gungjin ancestral qi. Countless strands of Gungjin ancestral qi gathered in his hand, bursting with dazzling light. In an instant, a long saber was formed. Wisps of divine light of the great path flowed out of this long saber, causing the entire world to tremble. The Gungjin ancestral qi was unparalleled in terms of offensive power. Demon Venerable Raha's blade technique could be said to have reached the pinnacle of perfection. However, Yi Shiwen's blade technique wasn't inferior either. He was also a grandmaster of the blade technique. He was also an expert of the blade technique. The 2 treasured sabers collided fiercely. It was as if they were great enemies. The 2 sabers tore the heaven and earth into 2 halves. Boom! The arms of both parties were trembling. They had already sensed that the other party was extraordinary. However, in the end, Yi Shiwen's strength was still a notch higher. He had cultivated the meritorious tyrant form, golden body. At this moment, the power of his physique cultivation was fully reflected. He was different from the cultivators who purely cultivated physique, like the body venerable. If it was a body venerable, even if his physique cultivation was not inferior to Yi Shiwen, it would be difficult for him to pose any threat to demon venerable Rahu. However, Yi Shiwen's own skill was also like the vast ocean. It was even more tyrannical and terrifying. He also had all kinds of magical martial arts at his fingertips without any difficulty. This made Yi Shiwen countless times more terrifying than the body venerable of the same realm. Although every celestial master who had reached the pinnacle was very terrifying, and there was no difference in power between techniques and people, the problem was that Yi Shiwen had simultaneously cultivated so many great paths that could allow people to reach the pinnacle. Moreover, he had also reached the pinnacle. This was very terrifying. Demon Venerable Rahu realized that he had fallen into a disadvantageous position in the battle against Yi Shiwen. A look of disbelief flashed in his eyes. The three great supreme masters were blocked by Yi Shiwen at the same time. The middle heavenly venerable also looked at Yi Shiwen with a brilliant look in his eyes. Even a person like Demon Venerable Lu, who was unfamiliar with him, had already recognized it. So how could he? He had indeed recognized Yi Shiwen's technique. It was the technique that he had used to delay Demon Venerable Lu and the other two. However, he was even more aware of how fast one had to be in order to use such a magical power. This was his special skill. In this domain, he dared to claim that he was the strongest in the martial arts era. In this domain, he dared to claim that he was the strongest in the past and in the future. In this domain, all the powerhouses throughout the ages had to bow their heads to him. However, there was now another person who could actually stand shoulder to shoulder with him in the domain of speed. The speed of Yi Shiwen's growth was really amazing. When he first knew Yi Shiwen had just advanced to the heavenly master realm. This kind of person was nothing at all. However, it was this junior that he was more optimistic about. Now he could actually stand shoulder to shoulder with him. He was even more aware that Yi Shiwen was not like him. He only specialized in speed. In order to make his speed even more terrifying, he tried his best to practice the golden body of merit. If he did not have the golden body of merit as a foundation, the power of his speed would also be greatly reduced when he raised his speed to the extreme. There was no difference in strength between techniques. If he did not practice other techniques, how could the speed law be superior to the other laws? Yi Shiwen, on the other hand, was proficient in multiple great Daos at the same time. All of them were completely different. The comprehension of the 3,000 martial Dao made him feel even more amazed. He didn't know how Yi Shiwen did it. However, although there were many thoughts in his mind, his speed was not slow. The path of speed was what he was best at. In just a moment, he took advantage of the time that Yi Shiwen bought for him to fly to the side of Heavenly Talisman Immortal. The Martial Master Seal was also constantly rotating, protecting him and Heavenly Talisman Immortal at the same time. With the protection of the Martial Master Seal, even if Demon Venerable Lu and the other two could break the Martial Master Seal, it was impossible to kill them instantly. This gave Yi Shiwen a chance to react. Judging from Yi Shiwen's speed, Demon Venerable Lu and the other two already understood that it was impossible to kill the Middle Heavenly Master and Heavenly Talisman Immortal at this time. It was only possible if they could kill Yi Shiwen. The three also stopped trying to kill the Middle Heavenly Master first. Instead, they looked coldly at Yi Shiwen, who was surrounded in the middle. At this time, Yi Shiwen also withdrew his magical power. The three Zaiwans also returned to one person. Martial Master, I also have to admit that your means are really good. Demon Venerable Luahu looked coldly at Yi Shiwen. The Middle Heavenly Master is already the most powerful person I've seen in terms of speed law. I didn't expect you to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord couldn't help but praise. At his cultivation level, he was not willing to belittle his opponent against his conscience. If that was the case, it would be an insult to himself. If Yi Shiwen was nothing, then wouldn't he be even more humiliated if he couldn't even take down Yi Shiwen, who was nothing? But the more it is like this, the more excited I am. The stronger the enemy I kill, the greater my improvement. Hierarch Thunderfire said coldly. There was even a hint of excitement in his expression. He was itching to give it a try, as though he had met a worthy opponent. He was extremely excited. Just a worthy opponent? Yishiwen sneered and said, "Now I can go all out and fight with you." Yishiwen let out a long roar. He wasn't the slightest bit afraid in the face of being surrounded by the three Supremes. On the contrary, he only felt the aura of his entire body rising rapidly. His blood was boiling. Even if your speed is the same as the middle heavenly master and you stand in an unprecedented domain, it is still useless. For people of our realm, this is just a basic level. Thunderfire Divine Lord sneered. Boom! As the deity of Thunderfire spoke, he moved in an instant. His entire body was shrouded in the power of thunder. In this world, he was the ruler of thunder. In terms of the laws of thunder, he had truly reached the pinnacle of perfection. He could even give birth to life in the thunder, evolve into a divine nation, and turn the impossible into the possible. Countless thunderbolts interweaved like thunder dragons and formed a world of thunder. They rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. It seemed as if they wanted to devour him. This was the most terrifying aspect of Thunder, Fire Divine Lord. All the laws were nothing in front of his thunderbolts. They turned into the most basic divine radiance and rushed in all directions. Yi Shiwen was also fearless. His whole body was shining with the golden light of merit. He didn't evade at all and rushed into the world of thunder interweaved by Thunder, Fire Divine Lord. Walalala. In an instant, there were countless thunderbolts bombarding towards Yi Shiwen. In just a moment, Yi Shiwen had already been devoured by the thunderbolts. His figure couldn't be seen at all. In the distance, the faces of the middle heavenly venerable and the heavenly talisman immortal venerable revealed a somewhat worried expression. How could Yi Shiwen deal with Thunder Fire Divine Venerable so easily? Most importantly, the demon Venerable Rahu and the Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerable were eyeing him covetously. Neither of these two experts was an ordinary person. They were eyeing Yi Shiwen like a tiger watching its prey. Suddenly, just as everyone was waiting for the result, they saw a figure rushing out of this endless world of thunder. This figure's whole body was shining, and the golden light was incomparably dazzling, illuminating the entire world. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? His figure rushed out of the world of thunder, and wherever he passed, the world of thunder collapsed one after another. The thunderbolts couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen at all. Although it was a terrifying power evolved from a most primitive thunder law, it didn't seem to have any effect on Yi Shiwen at all. If this is all you've got, then don't blame me for taking your life. Yi Shiwen roared and spread his arms. Like two long dragons, he fell towards Thunder, Fire Divine Lord. Chapter 37:22. Yi Shiwen was still incomparably overbearing. The Thunder Fire Divine Venerable's attack seemed terrifying. Even the power of each thunderbolt could pierce through a world. It was extremely terrifying. However, he had practiced the golden body of Meritorious Tyrant Body. So, this level of attack was still insufficient for him. Yi Shiwen's arms were like two golden dragons that traversed the vast sky, blasting the vault of heaven into pieces. Then, he blasted towards Venerable Thunderfire. Venerable Thunderfire was a little shocked. Even a middle heavenly venerable couldn't ignore these attacks. However, Yi Shiwen had already rushed over, and his fists swept out like dragons. A treasured armor appeared on Divinity Thunderfire's body, protecting him within it. He was not a body cultivator expert. However, over the course of countless epochs, there had been countless body cultivators. Regardless of what methods they used to cultivate, the final results would always be astonishing. It was too late to turn around and cultivate the path of physical cultivation. Hence, this treasured armor was born. A heavenly venerable Tao artifact was enough to resist an all-out attack from a super heavenly venerable. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist directly landed on revered Thunder God's body, and an incomparably loud explosion suddenly erupted. The entire world trembled and turned into a terrifying sound wave that swept in all directions. Thump, thump, thump. Venerable Thunder Fire retreated several steps. Although he was protected by the treasured armor, the terrifying excess power still swept over his body, forcing him to retreat. In this aspect, even Venerable Thunderfire had to admit that Yishiwen had indeed reached the pinnacle of physical cultivation. Yishiwen looked at the retreating figure of Divine Thunder Fire Venerable and revealed a cold, killing intention on his face. He didn't stop and once again pounced towards him. His fists tore through the sky, and the sky was filled with fist shadows. Each of his fists could shatter the galaxy and destroy everything. At this moment, Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord could no longer sit still. Both of them flew over. Do you really think we're dead? Rahu Demon Venerable and Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerable surrounded Yishiwen from the left and right, sealing off all the space around him, making it impossible for him to escape. On the other side, although Thunder Fire Divinity was blasted back, he quickly rushed towards Yishiwen after he stopped. The three of them joined forces to surround Yishiwen. Come, let's fight. Yishiwen wasn't afraid in the slightest. He only felt that his blood was boiling. Such a big battle had almost made his bellicose nature erupt. 3 heads, 6 arms. Yishiwen's body slightly swayed, and 3 heads and 6 arms appeared around his body. It seemed as if he had transformed into 3 people at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. The battle between the 4 of them broke out instantly. The intense battle caused the entire tomb to tremble, and countless ripples of laws swept out. Even under the protection of the martial Venerable Seal, the Middle Heavenly Venerable and Heavenly Talisman Immortal could feel how intense the battle was. Just the aftermath of the battle had already caused the light curtain hanging down from the martial Venerable Seal to ripple violently, as if it would completely collapse in the next moment. They were also top experts, so they naturally understood what a battle of this level meant, especially the Middle Heavenly Venerable. He had also fought against Demon Venerable Luo Ho and the other 2 earlier, so he naturally knew how terrifying Demon Venerable Luo Ho and the other 2 were. Although he was seriously injured at that time, he was forced to burn his origin source to enhance his powerful strength. However, he had to admit that facing 3 people at the same time was simply a nightmare. Even so, at that time, he could only be said to have held back the 3 of them by himself. Moreover, it was only because Demon Exalt Lihu and the other 2 were unwilling to engage in a mutually destructive battle with him that he was able to hold on for so long. However, Yishiwen was facing 3 people at this time, and they were really going all out without holding back. Even so, Yishiwen could fight 1 against 3 happily, and there were no signs of him being unable to hold on. Therefore, even he had to admit that Yishiwen's strength might even surpass him at this time. Perhaps he no longer lived up to his reputation as the number 1 person in the Fortune God dynasty. But at this time, he would not have any other thoughts. It was obvious that the more tyrannical Yishiwen was, the more benefits he would get. In particular, the current situation that the Fortune God dynasty was facing could be described as a pile of eggs piled on top of each other. Under such circumstances, the Fortune God dynasty would be much safer if Yishiwen killed more heavenly venerables of the ancient era. However, I'm afraid that even Eastern Heavenly Venerable will not be able to hold on if the battle continues like this, unless his strength is several times stronger than the others. But obviously, this is impossible. Middle Heavenly Venerable quickly saw the current situation that Yishiwen was facing. Although 1 against 3 was indeed very carefree, but the problem was that this kind of consumption was several times more than the others. In other words, unless Yishiwen's skill was several times more than the others, otherwise, in a protracted battle, Yishiwen would inevitably be defeated. Demon Venerable Luo Ho and the others could also see this. Therefore, they attacked with all their might. They didn't give Yishiwen any chance to catch his breath. Even if they couldn't kill Yishiwen immediately, they could still drag him to death as long as they delayed. And Yishiwen obviously also saw this problem. Fighting 1 against 3, just fighting for a while had consumed 1/3 of his spiritual power. One should know that the spiritual power in his body could be said to be boundless like a vast ocean. This was the so-called boundless spiritual power. In a one-on-one fight, he would not be afraid of fighting for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. But the problem now was that he had to face 3 people at once, and the consumption of spiritual power was incomparably terrifying. This could not go on. Come, let's settle this. Yi Shiwen roared, and his whole body glowed. His entire body's vitality seemed to have transformed into a vast ocean. Cosmic creation palm. Yi Shiwen slapped out with his palm and immediately felt the spiritual power in his body condense together. The entire world of the tomb flipped, and then he blasted it at Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord. After using the cosmic creation palm, Yi Shiwen's aura was clearly more than twice as terrifying. Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord was completely unprepared, or rather, he did not expect Yi Shiwen to have mastered such a terrifying move. This was also the cosmic creation palm that Yi Shiwen had not used for a long time. Now that he was faced with such a situation, he used it again. His first target was Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord, because although Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had long cultivated on the brilliant great path, he could not hide the fact that he was a malicious spirit. Even if he had cultivated a physical body, even if he had cultivated to the peak heavenly venerable level, he could not change the weakness of his source. Therefore, against a vigorous body cultivator like Yi Shiwen, it could be said that he had met his natural nemesis. Almost instantly, he felt a huge threat. But at this moment, there was no other way. The power of the cosmic creation palm was too terrifying, and it immediately locked down the entire world. He could not escape, and could only choose to take it head-on. This was the terrifying power of the cosmic creation palm. Damn it, how can this be? Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord's huge body that was like a primordial mountain retreated a few steps, and each step covered millions of miles. But when he realized that he could not escape the cosmic creation palm, he immediately let out a roar, and countless malicious spirits flew out from his divine kingdom. They wanted to block it, but it was useless. In front of the cosmic creation palm, those malicious spirits turned into nothingness before they could even get close, as though they had evaporated. Finally, the cosmic creation palm came down, and Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord was also suppressed by the torrential blood. He had no choice but to spit out a ghost head mirror from his mouth, and the mirror reflected a world. This world slowly rose up, wanting to contend with Yi Shiwen. This world seemed to be a breeding ground for malicious ghosts. Countless malicious ghosts were sounding their horns, and the power of these malicious ghosts was added together to form an extremely terrifying force. But in the next second, the world that rose up from the ghost head mirror was smashed by the cosmic creation palm. The cosmic creation palm had absolute crushing power. As for Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord, he had no choice but to use both his fists to clash with the cosmic creation palm. His ghost head mirror was his heavenly venerable Tao treasure, but who knew that it would be completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen's cosmic creation palm? There was no way he could resist it. Pong! Finally, they collided. Sun Eater, Ghostly Lord let out a blood-curdling scream as both his arms exploded, turning into a mist of blood that filled the sky. He himself was sent flying, having been gravely injured in an instant. Under this palm, Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord, who had been extremely arrogant just now, was at a huge disadvantage. He could not resist at all. He was completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen. An unparalleled body cultivator like Yi Shiwen was his nemesis. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had a terrifying ultimate skill like the cosmic creation palm that could multiply his strength. This was the main reason why he was on his knees so quickly. Rumble! Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord's figure instantly slammed into a tomb at the side. It was unknown how many enchantments and spirit designs he had smashed through, but the entire tomb shook violently. At this moment, Demon Lord Rahu and Divinity Thunderfire had just reacted. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. Yi Shiwen had only flipped his palm, and he had heavily injured Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord. Cosmic Creation Palm. Demon Lord Rahu's expression was extremely ugly. As the leader of the demonic Tao epoch that had been at odds with the Fortune God dynasty for countless years, how could he not know the ultimate skill, the cosmic creation palm? Chapter 37:23. In fact, if it was said that as time passed in the Fortune Divine dynasty, many of the rising geniuses of the Fortune Divine dynasty did not recognize this lost art, then as the leader of the Devil Tao era, he naturally recognized this lost art. In fact, he was not born in this era. In fact, it could be said that he had lived through several eras. However, he was completely suppressed by the fate creation heavenly monarch who was born in this era. This in itself was a disgrace. However, he had to admit that the fate creation heavenly monarch was indeed a rare and great character. The lost technique he used had also become famous throughout the world as he battled all over the world. It was normal for some remote and silent eras not to have heard of it. However, it was impossible for a very active and powerful ancient era, like the Devil Tao era, to not know of it. The power of the universe creation palm was obvious to all. Now that Yi Shiwen was using it, although it was not as powerful as when the fate creation heavenly monarch used it in the past, it had undoubtedly reached an exaggerated level. He had actually managed to severely injure the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord with a single palm strike. One had to know that the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord was still having a good time fighting Yi Shiwen and was not at a disadvantage. But now, he was suddenly at a disadvantage. In fact, he was severely injured. This made the two of them take it seriously. Yi Shiwen did not follow up with another attack. He was stopped by the two of them. Both of them were extremely intelligent people and naturally would not be so shallow. They naturally understood how terrifying it was to be defeated by Yi Shiwen one by one. Originally, they would not have thought of this even if they were beaten to death. Defeated one by one? How is that possible? They were not afraid of a one-on-one. But now that Yi Shiwen had used his trump card, they immediately understood that Yi Shiwen had such an ability. Demon Venerable Luo Hon never knew that Yi Shiwen could use the universe creation palm. Perhaps it could be said that Yi Shiwen hadn't used this move for a very long time. Once he used it, it would produce earth-shattering might. Yi Shiwen was also digesting the previous palm. He had not used the universe creation palm in a long time because the consumption was too terrifying. Compared to the consumption of the supreme ancestral symbol, it was not any less. That palm just now had consumed an entire king-level dragon vein. This was because the power of the universe creation palm was largely related to Yi Shiwen's own strength. The stronger his strength, the stronger the universe creation palm would be. There was no doubt about it. However, the amount of resources and wealth required to unleash it was astonishing. Back when he had just mastered the cosmic creation palm, a king-tier dragon vein could allow him to unleash the cosmic creation palm almost limitlessly. Now, he could only unleash one palm. This was a change. Even though Yi Shiwen was now rich and overbearing, he still felt his eyelids twitching. However, the effect was naturally excellent. He had heavily injured the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord in one move, greatly alleviating the situation that Yi Shiwen was facing. Roar! The Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerable let out an incomparably loud roar. His entire body was emitting an extremely dangerous aura. The pair of ghost claws that Yi Shiwen had destroyed had already regenerated. His blood-colored eyes were like a pair of millstones, revealing an extremely fierce and tyrannical aura. This was originally the nature of a malicious ghost, but after he stepped onto the path of cultivation, he slowly restrained it. It was very difficult for ordinary people to force out his extremely fierce and tyrannical state. I will tear him to pieces and chew off your flesh piece by piece. The current Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord was extremely tyrannical and terrifying. If you can do it, then give it a try. Yi Shiwen looked at the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord in front of him. The Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had a green face and fangs. His expression was ferocious and extremely terrifying. Ordinary people would be scared to death just by looking at him. But to the current Yi Shiwen, it was useless. He was like an ancient well without ripples. This tyrannical mental power would not affect him in the slightest. The sun eclipse ghost lord roared. A terrifying power was boiling in his body. He spread his hands, gritted his teeth, and said, "I was planning on using this trump card to deal with middle heavenly venerables. Now it seems that using it on you isn't a loss. I will chew off your flesh piece by piece." As he spoke, the sun eclipse ghost lord flipped his ghostly claws and pulled out a piece of flesh that was still emitting a dark glow. Yes, a piece of flesh. This piece of flesh emitted a terrifying energy wave, as if it contained the terrifying energy of the Big Bang. The sun eclipse ghost lord's blood-red, ghostly eyes stared at Yishiwen. Then he swallowed the piece of flesh piece by piece. Boom! The sun eclipse ghost lord's body emitted a terrifying might. The terrifying power erupted in an instant. At this moment, the energy on the sun eclipse ghost lord's body was more than twice as strong as before. This was the trump card he had prepared for himself. Since he was here to snatch the absolute sky, sage's inheritance, how could he not have made any preparations? Just like Demon Lord Rahu and Middle Heavenly Venerables, they had also made their own preparations. It was just that these trump cards had been exhausted previously. Now, no one can stop me from killing you. The sun eclipse ghost lord revealed a cruel expression. He gritted his teeth coldly and looked extremely ferocious. Boom! The sun eclipse ghost lord moved instantly. His speed was extremely fast, and he appeared in front of Yishiwen in an instant. From afar, the middle heavenly venerate stared at the sun eclipse ghost lord. He realized that the sun eclipse ghost lord's speed could actually keep up with his. This was simply inconceivable. But he could also see that if he and Yishiwen were to be said to be those who had developed the speed law to the extreme and even entered the domain of time, and thus possessed the speed to dominate the world, then this sun eclipse ghost lord had relied on his powerful magic power to break through the obstacles and reach this stage. Two completely different paths, but the effects were equally shocking. Clearly, the sun eclipse ghost lord's strength had skyrocketed after swallowing that piece of meat that came from nowhere. But no matter what method he had used to achieve this, it was clearly not a good thing for the current Yishiwen. The sun eclipse ghost lord's speed was too fast. He suddenly appeared in front of Yishiwen and almost instantly caught Yishiwen off guard. But Yishiwen's speed was already very fast to begin with. Even without enhancements, he was not inferior to the sun eclipse ghost lord. Therefore, he still reacted. He raised his hands and formed a cross to protect himself. The sun eclipse ghost lord's ghostly claws grabbed his hands almost instantly. If Yishiwen's reaction had been just a little slower, his heart might have been ripped out. This ghostly claw was aimed directly at Yishiwen's heart. It was extremely vicious. Whoosh! After Yishiwen's figure was grabbed by the ghostly claw, he instantly retreated over 1,000,000 miles. His feet were like two treasured blades, directly tearing two huge cracks in the void. After stopping, Yishiwen shook his arms. They were actually a little numb. This was extremely terrifying. After devouring that piece of meat, the sun eclipse ghost lord had clearly experienced great improvements in all aspects. Be it speed, skill, or strength, they were all rising rapidly. Previously, when Yishiwen had blocked the attacks of 3 people at the same time, he had not experienced such a numb feeling. And around him, Thunder Fire Divinity and Rahu Demon Lord had already sealed off his path of retreat, not letting him escape. In their opinion, this was the best time to capture Yishiwen in one fell swoop. And clearly, the main attacking force was the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord. Boom! The Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord moved again. He opened his bloody mouth and pounced towards Yishiwen, spitting out the ghost head mirror. The mirror reflected a black light, crossing the void, directly towards Yishiwen's head, wanting to pierce through him. Yishiwen was not to be outdone. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. Boom! This black light was smashed to pieces by Yishiwen's punch, but on his fist, a wisp of ghostly aura appeared, and there was no way to clean it up immediately. This wisp of ghostly aura was even corroding Tyrant Avatar. Although it was quickly cleaned up by Yishiwen's great power, this was something that had never happened before. Previously, the ghost Tao world formed by the ghost head mirror could not do anything to him. Now, it was just a black light, and yet it had such an effect. One could imagine that the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had become even stronger. But before Yi Shiwen could react, the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen, still at the same extreme speed. Fast, fast, fast. Boom! It was another terrifying attack. Before Yi Shiwen could react, the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had already appeared behind him and launched another attack. Boom! 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 From afar, it seemed like the sky was filled with the shadows of the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord, all of them surrounding and attacking Yi Shiwen. They filled up Yi Shiwen's surroundings so tightly that one could only vaguely see Yi Shiwen's situation through some gaps. And under such circumstances, under such attacks, Yi Shiwen actually seemed to be at a slight disadvantage. But in the eyes of Demon Venerable Luo Hua and Demon Venerable Luo Hua, it was completely different. It should be known that the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had even used his trump card, but against Yi Shiwen, it could only be said that he had the upper hand. This was originally the trump card that the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had used to defeat and even kill Middle Heavenly Venerables. But now it was far from the expected effect. This was already shocking enough. The murderous intent in their hearts towards Yi Shiwen flourished even more. This guy was too strong enough to threaten their plans. Suddenly, at this moment, when it seemed like Yi Shiwen was completely beaten to the point where he could not retaliate, a cold shout came from within. You should have had enough, right? Next, it's my turn. Immediately after, a violent burst of energy erupted, rushing into the sky. Chapter 37:24. You should have had enough by now. Next, it's my turn. Violent energy swept through the world, and everything within a radius of millions of miles was dyed in a layer of dazzling and violent gold. A huge hand emerged from the storm of attacks of the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord, and then a terrifying scene unfolded. The attack that Yi Shiwen had felt a little helpless against was actually smashed into smithereens by this huge hand. In an instant, everything disappeared, and only the figures of two people were revealed. Yi Shiwen's body shone with golden light, and the 3,000 martial Tao laws danced around him. Endless waves of energy surged out violently. It made him seem like the only tyrant in the world, ruling over everything. And in front of him, the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord had already retreated tens of millions of miles. In the instant that his attack was broken, he had already felt a terrifying threat and immediately retreated, wanting to avoid Yi Shiwen. The expressions of Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Divine Venerable Thunder Fire also turned solemn at this time. Yi Shiwen had already faintly suppressed them. Moreover, he was now in such a state. He was tyrannical and dreadful. Yi Shiwen opened his eyes, feeling the surging energy in his body. Of course, there was also the terrifying power that was tearing at every cell. His eyes shot straight at Nyo Do, and there was a terrifying light flickering within. You all have trump cards, but don't tell me I don't. Yi Shiwen sneered. He took a step forward, and in an instant, he was already in front of the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord. So fast, the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord only reacted when Yi Shiwen was in front of him. Or rather, he could not react at all. Yi Shiwen's speed was already very fast to begin with. Now that he had advanced from speed laws to time laws, and now that he had entered the human unification as one state, his strength was not just a little bit stronger. Only you are fast. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, spreading his arms and punching out with his fists. Like two golden dragons, they instantly slammed into the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord's body. The Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord was completely defenseless, and all his defenses were instantly punched through. He could not stop Yi Shiwen's advance at all. Bam! The Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord groaned and was sent flying. Cracks began to appear all over his body. Yi Shiwen's fists had cracked it. Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord retreated continuously, flying tens of millions of miles away before barely managing to control his body. However, he still could not help but spit out a mouthful of essence blood. Pooh! Yi Shiwen's two fists were like two heavy hammers. They had directly pounded his internal organs, and a huge crack had appeared in his inner world. If he was able to suppress Yi Shiwen after using his trump card just now, he was now completely overtaken by Yi Shiwen. How can he be so strong? Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord was in complete disbelief. However, Yi Shiwen's reaction speed was much faster than his. He had just stopped, but Yi Shiwen had already rushed in front of him again. Wherever he passed, the entire sky was torn apart. In his hand, the gung metal ancestor Qi transformed into a huge blade, and he slashed it down viciously at the Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord. The Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord screamed miserably, and then his entire body began to burn with ghostly flames. He opened his bloody mouth and spat out the ghost head mirror. This ghost head mirror had transformed into a world, protecting him within. However, when the blade descended, the entire ghost head mirror's world was completely shattered. Countless malicious ghosts were vaporized instantly. Even though he had already attained the Great Tao, he was still so weak in the face of this blade. The gung metal ancestor Qi was unparalleled, and it directly sliced this ghost Tao world into two. Countless ghostly Qi transformed into torrents that blasted towards Yi Shiwen, but they could not break through the terrifyingly dense energy torrents around Yi Shiwen. Clang! With a loud bang, the long blade formed from the gung metal ancestor Qi slashed down on the ghost head mirror. A deafening roar erupted, and then the ghost head mirror was instantly sent flying. Cracks of various sizes appeared on the ghost head mirror. This was a peak heavenly venerate Tao treasure, but it was still cracked by this blade, and it was severely injured. This was Yi Shiwen's current strength and terror. This was also the first time that Yi Shiwen had entered the state of Human One unification after a breakthrough. Everyone was shocked by his current strength, and even he himself was secretly surprised. Compared to before, he was more than just a little stronger. The Sun Eclipse Ghostly Lord screamed miserably, and he retreated repeatedly. His ghost head mirror had also been severely injured by Yi Shiwen's blade. He and the ghost head mirror were originally one, so he was naturally heavily injured as well. Although he was not directly slashed, the terrifying and violent power still fell on his body. Blood seeped out of his entire body. Looking from afar, coupled with his hideous, ghostly face, he was incomparably terrifying. Go, we can't let him succeed. Both Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Divine Venerable Thunder Fire immediately reacted. They could not allow Yi Shiwen to continue like this. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. The two disappeared instantly, and when they reappeared, they were already on Yi Shiwen's left and right respectively, attacking Yi Shiwen in a pincer attack. Get lost, don't block me. Yi Shiwen was not in the mood to tangle with them. It was better to break one finger than to injure 10 fingers. Divine Venerable Thunderfire's attack firmly trapped him in the form of laws, not allowing him to move forward. Then, Demon Venerable Luo Ho held the demonic blade in his hand and slashed down fiercely, intending to kill Yi Shiwen. The two cooperated with each other. One restricted Yi Shiwen's movement, and the other attacked Yi Shiwen. Even Yi Shiwen was in a predicament of being outflanked. Break for me, Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and the supreme ancestral symbol flew out of his body. The supreme ancestral symbol rotated unceasingly. It swept out in all directions with Yi Shiwen as the core, and a terrifying energy frenzy swept out with his body as the core. And the magical principles of divine thunder and fire were destroyed in an instant. Then he clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and directly threw a backhand punch at the demonic blade that was slashing down. Bang! There was an incomparably loud boom, and Yi Shiwen actually caught the demonic blade with his bare hands. The demonic blade's attack was actually blocked by the surging energy from his body and could not break through at all. Countless demonic Tao laws were completely broken by the talisman Tao laws before they could even get close. Damn supreme ancestral symbol. Demon Venerable Luo Ho roared. How could he not recognize that Yi Shiwen was in the state of human conformity? Previously, divine venerable heaven talisman had escaped from him in this state, but compared to Yi Shiwen, there was clearly a huge gap. Divine venerable heaven talisman could only barely compete with him when he entered the state of human conformity. However, Yi Shiwen was much stronger than him when he entered the state of human conformity. This was left behind by the symbol ancestor and had always been the supreme treasure of the Talisman Dao era. It was also something that he had always coveted. He did not expect it to fall into Yi Shiwen's hands. On the other side, Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had also obtained a chance to catch his breath. He retreated continuously and retreated to recover. At this time, he could no longer talk about surrounding Yi Shiwen and killing him. It was already good enough that he was not killed by Yi Shiwen. Where do you think you're going? However, just as he escaped, Yi Shiwen had already appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. In this world of tombs, space shuttling was suppressed by the powerful laws. However, Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. The terror of the law of speed was vividly manifested here. Roar! Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord, who was being pressured by Yi Shiwen, roared again and again. The ghost head mirror appeared in his hand again. Although it was full of cracks from Yi Shiwen's slashes, it was still his strongest weapon. In an instant, the ghost head mirror transformed into a demonic blade that slashed towards Yi Shiwen. Clang! The blade landed on Yi Shiwen's body, but just like the demonic blade in Demon Venerable Luoho's hand, it could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. It could not even break through his physical defenses. Is that all you've got? Yi Shiwen sneered and looked at Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord. Weren't you very arrogant just now? Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord's eyes widened when he saw that his heavenly venerable Dao treasure could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. It was as though he'd seen a ghost. No matter how strong Yi Shiwen's physical cultivation skills were, this should not be the case. He could not move at all, and this was Yi Shiwen's strongest state. He had forced Yi Shiwen to use his strongest state. In the next instant, Yi Shiwen made his move. His huge hand suddenly grabbed out, and the entire world seemed to be imprisoned. Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord wanted to retreat, but he quickly realized that he could not escape at all. With Yi Shiwen's grab, the space around him had been sealed by Ningguju. There was no way for him to escape, even if he wanted to. Since he could not escape, Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord was not willing to back down. He would fight it out with Yi Shiwen, and a demonic claw came crashing down at Yi Shiwen. Boom! Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord's demonic claw collided violently with Yi Shiwen's huge hand. In an instant, a terrifying light that seemed like it was about to destroy the world erupted. Then, Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire arm had been clawed into a bloody mist. He was at a huge disadvantage in his clash with Yi Shiwen. Die! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly, and a horrifying saber light flashed, directly cutting off Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord's head. His primordial spirit was also reduced to nothingness at the same time. He could not block Yi Shiwen's blade at all. He died at Yi Shiwen's hands, and his corpse was also captured by Yi Shiwen into his inner world to water the world tree. Yi Shiwen looked at the remaining two and asked coldly, "How do you want to die?" Chapter 3725. Both of their expressions froze. The fact that Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had died at Yi Shiwen's hands made them feel a sense of terror. Existences at their level would not be born easily, but similarly, they would not die easily either. Especially now that the true masters who dominated everything no longer appeared. They had also become the most powerful people in the world. Even the Fortune God dynasty only had one middle heavenly lord, let alone the other ancient eras. Not to mention the other ancient eras. Most of the ancient eras did not have the existence of such a level of expert. And now, right in front of them, an expert of the same level as them had died at Yi Shiwen's hands just like that. This was the first time they felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts, because they truly felt that death was approaching. Don't be too arrogant. Are you trying to kill the two of us? Demon Lord Luoho said coldly. Suddenly, a loud sound rang out. Yi Shiwen's entire body was dyed with a layer of golden color, and all kinds of golden laws danced around. 3,000 martial arts laws were boiling, making him look like the only god in the world. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen leaped up like a dragon and descended like a phoenix. He was like a ferocious beast that traversed the universe. The sky collapsed, and he directly killed his way to Demon Lord Luo Ho. "Didn't you say that you must kill me? Let's see how you kill me." Yi Shiwen flew in front of him in an instant, and his fists were like two long dragons directly blasting out. Boom! Two huge holes were pierced through the entire world. It was incomparably terrifying. This was a shocking attack that sent chills down one's spine. Demon Lord Luo Ho was forced to this extent by Yi Shiwen, but he was not willing to retreat at all. His black hair stood on end, and endless magical energy was formed around his body. It was so heavy that it directly pressed the void into powder, and it was incomparably terrifying. In the blink of an eye, Demon Lord Luo Ho's saber slashed down, and it collided with Yi Shiwen's fists. Bang! A huge explosion tore the sky apart. If a battle was fought in the universe, it could destroy entire areas of the universe. It was simply too terrifying. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Drop after drop of golden blood dripped down. It was none other than the palm of Demon Venerable Luo Ho. Blood was constantly dripping down from the palm of Demon Venerable Luo Ho. Demon Venerable Luo Ho's palm had ruptured due to the recoil from the collision of Yi Shiwen's fists. His blood dripped down. Each drop of blood turned into a boundless ocean and emitted a world-shaking and terrifying energy. Rahu Demon Venerable's arms were trembling slightly. He had suffered in the clash with Yi Shiwen. At this moment, he finally understood why Sun Eclipse Ghost Venerable had been defeated so quickly. Other than being completely countered by Yekshin, the most important thing was that Yi Shiwen truly possessed terrifying strength that far exceeded theirs. It was a chilling sight to behold. On the other side, Divine Lord Thunderfire also took advantage of this moment of stalemate and made his move. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a divine bird, and he opened his mouth to spit out a sea of flames that swept towards Yi Shiwen. Divine Lord Thunderfire was not only proficient in lightning attribute mystical abilities, but he was also proficient in fire attribute mystical abilities. After unleashing this move, Divine Lord Thunderfire grabbed the air, and the boundless power of lightning was grasped in his hand. Just as he was about to attack Yi Shiwen again, he saw a shocking scene. He saw that Yi Shiwen did not have the slightest bit of fear in the face of the sea of flames that was sweeping towards him. He merely opened his mouth and inhaled, and the boundless sea of flames was swallowed by him. Not a single trace of its existence was left behind. How? How is this possible? Divine Lord Thunderfire said in disbelief. Even a peak heavenly venerable would be burned to ashes if he swallowed it directly. This was not an ordinary flame. It was the flame of the origin. The temperature of hundreds of millions of degrees was enough to burn through the space and burn all strong enemies into nothingness. Since a long time ago, it was already difficult for him to meet an opponent who could rival him while cultivating the magical abilities of these two major systems. Not to mention later, when he touched upon the realm of the ruler, there had never been a situation where it was so easily broken by others. After watching Yi Shiwen swallow these flames, it seemed as if nothing had happened at all. He was not directly burned to death. However, he soon saw the light of the flame laws flickering in Yi Shiwen's body. Although it was not the flame laws of an era, he still recognized it. When a great way reached a certain level, different paths would lead to the same destination. He still understood this point. Immediately after, Yi Shiwen opened his mouth, and countless flaming phoenixes flew out. In an instant, after a series of screeches, all of them swept towards Divine Lord Thunderfire. The boundless sea of fire and the boundless flaming phoenix were no longer under the control of the thunder, fire, venerable god this time. He had tried to control it, but to no avail. In other words, the origin of real fire that he had just spat out had been transformed by Yi Shiwen in an instant. He had refined it into his own flame. Yi Xuan's attainments in the Law of Fire had also reached a shocking level. Divine Lord Thunder Fire waved his hand, and a bolt of lightning pierced through a flaming phoenix like a spear, turning it into nothingness. However, more flaming phoenixes were still sweeping over. In an instant, Divine Lord Thunderfire was drowned. Rumble, countless flaming phoenixes self-detonated in the air. Space itself collapsed, revealing a vast expanse of primal chaos. Primal chaos energy surged out from within. After a long time, Divine Lord Thunder Fire finally revealed his figure. At this moment, he looked extremely embarrassed. In the series of explosions just now, he was also battered and exhausted. More than half of the thunder armor that he was wearing had also exploded. What made him feel even more aggrieved was that most of these flaming phoenixes were the real fire origin that he had spat out. However, they were controlled by Yi Xuan and then turned around to attack him. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, only a few breaths of time had passed. Divine Lord Thunderfire was at a loss because of his real fire origin. On the other side, the battle between Yi Xuan and Demon Lord Rahu had also entered a white-hot stage. Although only a few breaths of time had passed, both sides had already exchanged thousands of blows. Demon Lord Rahu had completely fallen into a disadvantageous position. Yi Xuan's whole body was emitting a golden energy frenzy. His whole body was like a humanoid Tyrannosaurus, rampaging around, and it was difficult to resist. However, Yi Xuan's speed was extremely fast, and it was very difficult to defend. Therefore, throughout the battle, Demon Lord Rahu was very badly suppressed. Whether it was speed, strength, or attack techniques, he had fallen into a disadvantageous position. Yi Xuan had the overall advantage. In just a short time, cracks of various sizes had appeared on Demon Lord Rahu's body. At this moment, Demon Lord Rahu was already battered and exhausted. Divine Lord Thunderfire, come and help me. Demon Lord Rahu was extremely battered at this moment. Every attack of Yi Xuan was a perfect combination of speed, strength, and technique. He never knew that someone could completely crush him in all aspects, even though it was with the help of the state of body unification. But at this moment, Yi Xuan was undoubtedly the most terrifying. He could already feel that if this continued, he would be beaten to death by Yi Xuan. He didn't need to use any secret techniques or trump cards. Just a violent beating like this could kill him. Divine Lord Thunderfire's reaction was also very fast. He was proficient in thunder magic, so his speed was naturally extremely fast. It was just that he had encountered Yi Xuan, who was faster than him. That was why he was in such a passive and battered state. With the addition of Divine Lord Thunderfire, Demon Lord Rahu immediately felt the pressure on him lessen a lot. Although he was still at a disadvantage when it was 2 against 1, he didn't feel like he would be beaten to death. That would be too suffocating. He had never been in such a powerless situation before. Yi Xuan, on the other hand, was getting stronger and stronger. He was getting more and more familiar with this state as more and more battle prowess erupted from his body. He also faintly felt that he had touched the limit that he could reach at this moment. He could feel that although his overall strength had already far surpassed Demon Lord Rahu and Divine Lord Thunderfire, he was still a little short. There was no way for him to break through to the half-step sovereign realm. From the peak Heavenly Venerate to the half-step sovereign realm, it wasn't something that could be broken through by accumulating cultivation power bit by bit. Otherwise, Demon Lord Rahu, who had lived for many eras, would have become a half-step sovereign long ago. This was a boundary. Similarly, it was also the kind of situation where one could cross it if they comprehended it. If they didn't, they would never be able to cross it. His state of body unification could be said to be invincible among heavenly venerates. However, if he encountered a half-step sovereign expert, he still had no way to resist. Moreover, the state of body unification was also limited. At this moment, the cells in his body had already started to show irreversible injuries. Clearly, he couldn't fight for a long time. This was his biggest problem. Originally, with his cultivation realm, it wasn't the time for him to consider the half-step sovereign level. However, the enemies he encountered were all half-step sovereign-level experts. Whether it was the primal chaos overlord that was about to be born, or those old monsters that wanted to destroy the martial epic, which one of them wasn't a half-step sovereign-level existence. He had to consider this problem. I'm going all out. Even if I get severely injured, I have to get rid of these two people. A frightening light flashed in Yi Shiwen's eyes. Demon Lord Rahu and Divine Lord Thunder Fire immediately felt the frightening, murderous aura coming from Yi Shiwen's body. They knew that the crucial moment had arrived. Universe Creation Palm. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and his palm fell down. It directly froze the universe. The entire world was spinning, and everything was completely reversed under this palm. Chapter 3726. Universe Creation Palm. That palm seemed to have drawn out all the power in the world, and then it fell down fiercely, causing the world to shake violently. Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Divine Venerable Thunderfire could clearly feel that the surrounding space had been sealed, making it impossible for them to escape. Fight! Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Divine Venerable Thunderfire looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. They had been pushed to their limits by Yi Shiwen. If they didn't fight with their lives on the line, they might not even have the chance to do so. In this state, Yi Shiwen was undoubtedly an unprecedentedly terrifying enemy. He was much more terrifying than a Middle Heavenly Venerable. At least a Middle Heavenly Venerable couldn't kill Sun, Eclipse, Ghost Lord while fighting 1 against 3. He had even forced the two of them into a dead end. After Demon Venerable Luo Ho let out a demonic roar, his body grew larger and larger until he transformed into a huge Dharma idol. He held a long saber that was hundreds of thousands of miles long and slashed at the descending Universe Creation Palm. Divine Venerable Thunderfire was not to be outdone. Countless lightning and flame powers intertwined and turned into a boundless ocean. Countless waves swept out from it and turned into a beam of energy light that blasted at the descending Universe Creation Palm. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A series of terrifying collisions finally erupted. What kind of terrifying power was this? Multicolored light filled the sky and scattered in all directions. From afar, it looked extremely beautiful, but those who truly understood it would know how terrifying it was. This attack alarmed many heavenly venerables and law creatures in the entire tomb world. They looked at the dazzling light created by this attack in horror. This must be a joke. How was this possible? A powerful 7th realm heavenly venerable was completely shocked when he saw this terrifying, dazzling light. Or rather, he was scared to death. Even just looking at it from afar made one's heart palpitate. Not to mention being in the center of the battle, even just being swept by the aftershocks made one feel like they would die. What kind of people are fighting? Many people wanted to see the center of the battle. With the eyesight of a celestial paragon, this should not have been difficult. However, this was Sage Absolute Heaven's graveyard world. The space and the various laws were abnormally stable. Their divine abilities were also greatly restricted. Their eyesight couldn't see so far away. They could only see the aftermath of the battle sweeping out. The entire space was like boiling water, and the violent fluctuations were extremely frightening. If they weren't all-powerful cultivators, just the violent fluctuations of the space would be enough to force them into a dead end. It's the laws of the magic epic, the demonic epic, and the martial epic. These Empyreans were all experienced people. They quickly determined from the fluctuations of the laws that these were the fluctuations of the laws of the 3 great epics. But at this level of collision, who else could it be? Even a peak heavenly venerate would not be able to catch up to that. The only ones with such strength in the various epics were the Divine Thunder Fire Venerate and the Rahu Demon Venerate in the magic epic. However, who would have the law fluctuations of the martial epic? Could it be the Middle Heavenly Venerate? Many Empyreans' deduction abilities were too strong. Combining what they knew before, they instantly deduced most of the situation. However, The only person they could deduce from the martial epic's laws was a middle heavenly venerate. As far as they knew, there was only one middle heavenly venerate in the martial epic who could reach such a level. Furthermore, a middle heavenly venerate was here. Aside from a middle heavenly venerate, who else could it be? However, this level of collision had completely surpassed their imagination. Can a heavenly venerate really burst out with such an attack? Many people thought of this. Even if they were very curious, they didn't dare to go forward to take a look. The laws here isolated their vision. Even if they opened their heavenly eyes, they wouldn't be able to see anything. If they wanted to take a look, they could only go forward to take a look. However, given the current situation, they would only be turned to ashes by the aftershocks of the battle. From the aftershocks of the battle, they could feel the huge gap between them and the three people fighting. I didn't expect the Fortune God dynasty's middle heavenly venerates to be so tyrannical. Do those people really have a chance of killing the martial epic's heavenly Tao? This is too horrifying. I feel a chill coming from the bottom of my heart. In the future, I'd better stay as far away from these three people as possible. This is too scary. However, in another part of the graveyard world, the West Heavenly Venerate, who had just killed a powerful law life form, frowned slightly. She put away her sword and stood alone in her white robes. Beside her was a group of Fortune God dynasty's heavenly venerates. They had also keenly sensed the fluctuations coming from that direction. After being rescued by Yi Shiwen, they had been killing law life forms and recuperating. Looking in that direction, they could naturally guess that the middle heavenly venerates were fighting. Could that be a middle heavenly venerate? They could all feel a sense of danger rising in their bones. It was an instinctive sense of danger that warned them to hide as far away as possible and not get close. No, it's not a middle heavenly venerate. The West Heavenly Venerate frowned slightly. She quickly sensed that the fluctuations were definitely not those of a middle heavenly venerate. People from other ancient eras could roughly determine that it was the martial epic's laws through the fluctuations of laws. Judging from the people from the Fortune God dynasty, it should be a middle heavenly venerate. However, powerhouses like the West Heavenly Venerate, who were very familiar with middle heavenly venerates, could still distinguish the specific fluctuations of laws. Those were definitely not the fluctuations of laws of a middle heavenly venerate. How could they not know the fluctuations of laws of a middle heavenly venerate? It was not that they had never seen a middle heavenly venerate go all out. However, it was obvious that these were not the fluctuations of laws of a middle heavenly venerate. This was impossible to fake. Everyone cultivated different laws, so the fluctuations of laws on their bodies were completely different. This was something that could not be changed even with a disguise. And if these were not the fluctuations of laws of a middle heavenly venerate, then the rest was not difficult to guess. Combined with the fact that Yi Shiwen had just gone to rescue a middle heavenly venerate, it was not difficult for her to guess that this person should be the new Eastern heavenly venerate, Yi Shiwen. He has actually reached this point. The West heavenly venerate still had a somewhat incredulous look on her face. From the fluctuations of laws that were transmitted over, it was not difficult for her to guess how terrifying the battle was. However, she had to consider another problem. Now that the middle heavenly venerate had just ascended to the position and the Eastern heavenly venerate had already grown to such a level, would this cause turmoil for the Fortune God dynasty? She did not have much desire for the position of middle heavenly venerate because she knew that if there was no way to touch that realm, it would never be possible. Previously, the position of middle heavenly venerate had been empty for so many years without any results. Was it just because no one had made a great contribution? Whether it was the city lords of the 10 divine cities or the 4 great heavenly venerates, they all had enough merits to sit on the position. However, they did not have enough strength to suppress the other experts. It was only when the middle heavenly venerate displayed this strength that he naturally became the deputy ruler of the Fortune God dynasty. And now, Yi Shiwen had appeared. He was terrifyingly strong. She was so afraid that she did not want to admit that Yishiwen already had the strength to stand on equal footing with a middle heavenly venerate. And if Yishiwen was not satisfied with the position of Eastern heavenly venerate, then the turmoil of the Fortune God dynasty was almost inevitable. However, she quickly suppressed her emotions. At least from the current situation, the stronger Yishiwen was, the better it would be for the Fortune God dynasty and even the martial epoch. After all, the primal chaos overlord was about to be born. It was already very stressful, not to mention that there were several old monsters who had designs on the martial epoch and planned to destroy it. Under such circumstances, the stronger Yishiwen was, the better it would be for the future chaotic situation. As for the future, she would think about it later. She sighed softly. She did not expect that she would have to pin her hopes on a junior who had just become a heavenly venerate not long ago. And now, it seemed that he was absolutely capable of shouldering such a heavy responsibility. Yishiwen's universe creation palm slammed down. At the same time, a king gray dragon vein on his body burned and was rapidly consumed. At the same time, demon venerate Lohu and deity Thunderfire were also desperately resisting. This moment seemed like it could last forever. But in the next second, the situation changed. Demon venerate Lohu and deity Thunderfire were already doing their best, but the power of Yishiwen's universe creation palm was still rising. I don't believe that I can't burn another king gray dragon vein. Yishiwen's eyes burst out with a sharp light. Another king gray dragon vein was burning in his body. The power of the universe creation palm skyrocketed in an instant. Demon supremacy Luoho and divinity Thunderfire probably didn't expect that the power would continue to skyrocket. They who were already on the verge of collapsing had all of their defenses shattered in an instant, and the palm struck them directly. Bang! Bang! The two of them were instantly sent flying. Their bodies burst open, blood splattered, and bone fragments swirled in the air. The two of them spat out a mouthful of blood. It looked extremely tragic. The two of them had joined forces, but they were at a complete disadvantage in the battle against Yishiwen. How could this be? My life is over. The two of them widened their eyes completely, as if they could not figure out how it turned out like this. I'll kill you while you're down, Yishiwen shouted and was about to attack. Suddenly, a terrifying aura came from the depths of the tomb. An incomparably terrifying figure was approaching at a terrifying speed. Eastern Heavenly Venerate, run! In the distance, the Middle Heavenly Venerate's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly shouted. Chapter 37:27. Yishiwen had already made a decision within a thousandth of a second. His big hand grew bigger and bigger, directly grabbing the Middle Heavenly Master and Heavenly Talisman Immortal who were protected by the Martial Master Seal. Then, he leaped and disappeared from the place. This series of actions was like moving clouds and flowing water, without any sloppiness at all. Both Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Divine Venerable Thunder Fire hadn't reacted yet. They didn't know what had happened. They shouldn't have been in such a state with their cultivation. However, they had been beaten up by Yishiwen a moment ago. They had almost lost their lives. So, how could they have the time to care about their surroundings? It was only when they finally reacted that they seemed to be saved. The two of them couldn't help panting. It was not because they were too tired, but their mood fluctuated too quickly. With their cultivations, their hearts should have been as still as water and as firm as a rock, and they wouldn't be easily shaken. However, after they took a trip between life and death and the gates of hell, they realized that the cultivation of their mental state was still too lacking. For the first time, they truly understood what it meant to be horrifying between life and death. It was because they had never been so close to death before. Even if they had experienced some tragic battles, it wasn't as dangerous and horrifying as this battle with Yishiwen. Only when death was really near would they understand why those old fellows were so unscrupulous. If they didn't fight, they would die, and they would be powerless to do anything about it. They could only watch helplessly as they welcomed death. In between life and death, they would do anything in order to survive. Just as they were taking a few breaths, a figure appeared at the entrance of the tomb without them noticing. It was a man in white. This man wore a white robe, and his face was handsome like a sculpture. However, his face carried a cold aura, making it difficult for people to approach him. He just glanced at Demon Venerable Luo Ho and Divine Venerable Thunder Fire lightly, and the two suddenly felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave, almost suffocating. Everyone else is dead. You didn't kill the Middle Heavenly Master? Useless. The man in white stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the two with eyes full of disappointment and disdain. Demon Exalt Luo Ho and Divine Exalt Lei Ho's faces alternated between green and white. They were extremely embarrassed and furious. The two of them were high and mighty figures in their respective eras, yet they were being reprimanded like two grandsons. Even so, they still didn't dare to say anything, because they knew very well exactly what sort of existence this white-clothed man before them was. It is not that we are incapable. It is just that the new Eastern Heavenly Venerate of the martial epoch is very powerful. He rescued the Middle Heavenly Venerate. Divine Thunderfire said after a pause. He saved her? You're still sticking gold on your own face? Aren't they all dead? If I hadn't come out, would all of you have died? The white-robed man did not give any face to Thunderfire divinity at all. He directly destroyed his tactful excuse on the spot. Hierarch Thunderfire was so embarrassed that he wanted nothing more than to dig a hole in the ground. Although he hadn't thought too much about it earlier, he didn't have the time to think about it. Now that he thought about it, it was indeed embarrassing. So many people had been annihilated by Yi Shiwen alone. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit it. Although Yi Shiwen had indeed annihilated them one by one, he couldn't use this as an excuse. It could be seen from Yi Shiwen's eruption of combat power later on, let alone annihilating them one by one. Even if they joined forces to attack him, they might not be a match for him. In the end, they would all be annihilated. It was just that the price they had to pay would be higher than now. Even if Yi Shiwen wasn't in the state of human synchronization, he was still faintly stronger than them. After entering the state of human synchronization, he instantly crushed them. Compared to Hierarch Thunderfire, Demon Venerate Luo Ho was calm. Perhaps he had accepted the concept that Yi Shiwen was very strong first. Since he already had such a concept, it didn't matter what kind of crushing defeat he suffered in the end. It was just that his eyes were flickering with terrifying anger, proving that he was far from being as calm as he looked on the surface. From the beginning, he had never thought highly of Yi Shiwen. Later on, he thought that he had overestimated Yi Shiwen. Who knew that he would still fall into Yi Shiwen's hands? He should have tried his best to kill Yi Shiwen from the beginning. However, it was too late now. It was useless to regret. However, he immediately thought that the martial epoch would also fall apart soon. At that time, the world would be in chaos. It would be a gluttonous feast for him. For Yi Shiwen, it would undoubtedly be a dead end. At that time, there would definitely be a time for him to take revenge. Forget it. Whether it's the Middle Heavenly Master or this Eastern Heavenly Master who suddenly appeared, it doesn't matter. They're just a bunch of clowns. The number of people I respect in the martial epoch can be counted on one hand. The man in white said indifferently, right now, the one I want to fight the most is the Primal Chaos Overlord. Both he and I were born in this epoch. However, I was born later than him. I couldn't fight the Fortune Creation Heavenly Lord. It's my biggest regret. But it doesn't matter. If the Fortune Creation Heavenly Lord can defeat him, I can also defeat him. Only then can I prove that I'm not inferior to the Fortune Creation Heavenly Lord. If outsiders heard this, it would probably cause a huge uproar. This man in white actually wanted to compare himself with the Fortune Creation Heavenly Lord. Moreover, he believed that he was not inferior to the Fortune Creation Heavenly Lord. It should be known that although the Fortune Creation Heavenly Lord was the Fortune God Dynasty's Heavenly Lord, he was also famous throughout the many epochs. Even the experts of the demonic epoch, which constantly opposed the martial epoch, had to admit that he was a peerless figure. In this epoch, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the most dazzling one. Not to mention surpassing him, There was no one in this epic who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Even in the countless epics, there were not many people who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Even the rulers of those powerful epics did not dare to say that they were stronger than the fortune creation Heavenly Lord. Many people even said that it was impossible for anyone to surpass such a figure. Normally, this was normal. An epic that could produce a figure like the fortune creation Heavenly Lord had already absorbed all the essence of the world. It could even be said that the entire epic's luck had been used up, so it was unlikely that another one would appear. Every epic's resources and luck could not produce such a figure without limit. This was because the appearance of such a person would occupy all the resources and luck of others. Hence, there was an exclusivity. Even a martial epic could not produce such an existence, not to mention the other incomplete epics. In the other epics, even the Great Tao was incomplete, so it was even more impossible for another person of such a level to appear. However, this man in white actually wanted to compare himself with the fortune creation Heavenly Lord. It was easy to imagine how big of a storm it would cause if news of this spread. However, be it Demon Venerate Luoho or Divine Venerate Thunderfire, they did not have much of a reaction. In fact, they did not even find it strange. This was because they knew the identity of this man in white. If others could not compete with the fortune creation Heavenly Lord, then this man in white might have a chance. You two come in with me. Now, I also need your help. I think you two should know how important this matter is. If things go wrong, then there is no need for me to do anything. You two should know what the consequences will be. The man in white looked at the two and said, "If you cut off their path of survival, they will cut off your path of survival." Now, they dare to kill anyone who stands in front of them. They even dared to destroy the martial epic, let alone you two. We understand. There is no need for you to remind us. Demon Venerate Luoho said angrily. Waves of demonic aura rose from his body, and the injuries caused by Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm were gradually recovering. You guys will benefit from this as well. It's been a few epics, and you guys haven't been able to step into the half-step sovereign realm. If this continues, you guys will learn from the mistakes of those old fellows. I won't say anything unnecessary. If this matter wasn't so important, do you think I would say anything else to you? The white-robed man said coldly. That's right. We all understand. There's no need to say anything more. Divine Venerate Thunderfire said. He stood up, and the magical light of healing flickered on his body. Soon, he had almost recovered. Although it could not be said that he had completely recovered, it was no longer a big problem. After all, as an outstanding peak heavenly venerate, his recovery ability was not something that others could imagine. Then don't play dead. Follow me, the man in white said, and disappeared in front of the two, flying toward the entrance of the tomb. Demon Venerate Luoho and Divine Venerate Thunderfire looked at each other, and then immediately followed him into the tomb. At the same time, Yi Shiwen was already very far away. After confirming that he could no longer feel that terrifying aura, he finally stopped. He also withdrew from the state of human one, and the powerful energy on his body gradually withdrew. With a phoenix cry, his whole body was surrounded by a healing energy. After a while, the injuries caused by the supreme ancestral symbol on his body gradually recovered. At the very least, it could not be seen on the surface. The instantaneous explosion just now was too damaging to his vitality, but he had no other choice. He did not even think about it. After recovering for a while, Yi Shiwen looked at the middle heavenly venerate, who was healing, and said, "Who is that person? Half-step sovereign? Which epoch is he from?" Chapter 3728. Who is that person? Half-step ruler? Which epoch is he from? After a long time, the middle heavenly venerate heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I don't know who that person is. I've only heard others mention him. He's called Half-Moon Immortal Monarch. I've never seen him before." Even you don't know? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but feel a little strange. Although he hadn't fought with that Half-Moon Immortal Monarch, he should be a half-step ruler from the looks of it. Even though half-step sovereign realm experts were not as rare as half-step sovereign realm experts, they weren't far off. In the entire history of the Fortune Divine Dynasty, the number of half-step sovereign realm experts recorded in the Fortune Divine Dynasty, including the Fortune Heavenly Monarch, could be counted on one hand. In some epochs where a ruler-level expert had yet to appear, such a figure was already a supreme ruler of an epoch. Although the history of the martial epoch was not as long as those ancient epochs, it was still very long. They had fought against those ancient epochs more than once or twice. Over the long history of the martial epochs, they had fought against each other, which was sufficient for them to understand many things. There was actually a half-step ruler that the Middle Heavenly Venerate didn't know about. Moreover, this half-step ruler was born in this epoch. Logically speaking, a person born in this epoch couldn't have been born so silently. The birth of a half-step ruler was often accompanied by a path of blood and life and death battles. It was unknown how many experts had died in their hands before a half-step ruler could be born. This was the root cause of Yi Shiwen's confusion. I'm not very sure. The Middle Heavenly Venerate shook his head. He was sure he hadn't heard of this half-moon immortal monarch. Yi Shiwen looked at Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerate. Although Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerate was slightly weaker than the Middle Heavenly Venerate, in terms of knowledge, he was probably above the Middle Heavenly Venerate. After all, as the ruler of the Talisman Tao epoch, he had survived several apocalypses. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerate also shook his head. I can't be sure because I haven't heard of it either. However, I can say that there have been similar situations since ancient times. In the past, there have been half-step rulers who suddenly appeared. There have been? Yi Shiwen slightly wrinkled his brows. He felt as if he had touched upon the truth of the matter, but he still had no clue. It was already strange enough that a half-moon immortal lord had appeared. However, if such a person had also appeared in the previous eras, then it would be very unusual. Yes, there were indeed similar situations. I just feel that there might be some connection between the two, but I can't be sure. Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable said, Forget it. No matter what, I'll send you to the Western Lord first. You can go back first, said Yi Shiwen. What about you? Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable asked with concern. I can't leave yet. Didn't we come here to find Sage Absolute Heaven's inheritance? I haven't found it yet, Yi Shiwen said. Originally, Xiao Chan still had some doubts about Sage Absolute Heaven's inheritance being able to force out the martial epoch's heavenly Tao and kill him. Now, he no longer had any doubts about it. This matter involved too many eras and too many experts. There were even half-step sovereigns among them. These people were all great figures who could make the entire universe tremble with a stomp of their feet. Since these people were attracted here, this matter was most likely true. Although Xiao Chan didn't know where they got the news and what exactly was Sage Absolute Heaven's inheritance, he still understood one thing. However, there was one thing he was very clear about. He absolutely could not let the half-moon immortal lord succeed. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. If the martial epoch was destroyed, even if Xiao Chan could protect himself, his future would be cut off. The heavenly Tao was already incomplete. How could he hope to progress further? Heaven Talisman Immortal Venerable had not made any progress for so many years because the Talisman epoch's heavenly Tao was already incomplete. Furthermore, it was destroyed later on. Comprehending the Tao. However, if the Tao was gone, what was the point of comprehending the Tao? He still wanted to progress further. Therefore, to him, preserving the martial epoch was an instinctive choice. He had no other choice. He still wanted to become a half-step sovereign, or even a sovereign. Those old monsters wanted to destroy the martial epoch to survive, while he wanted to preserve the martial epoch to pursue the Tao. Both sides had no other choice. He could not even take a step back. Anyone who stood in his way would die. You still want to go in? No, it's too dangerous. The Middle Celestial Master quickly said, I originally prepared the projection of the universe map of good fortune to deal with experts of this level, but it still failed. Although the projection of a universe map of good fortune is powerful, it is still not enough to deal with experts of this level. Even if you have the supreme ancestral symbol, you won't have any chance of winning against a half-step sovereign realm expert. Even if you have the strength to contend against them, you won't be able to fight for a long time. This is your greatest weakness. Although the middle heavenly venerable was severely injured, he still had his vision. He could naturally tell that even if Yi Shiwen was very strong, even vaguely superior to him, he was definitely not a match for the half-moon immortal lord. At their level, they could only be said to be touching the edge of the sovereign realm. However, the half-moon immortal lord had already taken one step into it. This caused the difference in strength between them to be like the difference between heaven and earth. Even if the supreme ancestral talisman could only be used to protect himself, he could not fight for long. This would become a fatal weakness when fighting against peak experts. I know, but I'm still not willing to give up like this. I'll go and take a look first. Who knows, there might be an opportunity to destroy it. Yi Shiwen said with a nod. In that case, be careful. Hearing Yi Shiwen say this, the middle heavenly venerable could only nod. He knew that Yi Shiwen did not decide to do this on impulse. Moreover, he did not want the absolute heaven sage's inheritance to fall into the hands of the half-moon immortal lord. If that happened, the situation would be extremely bad. The most tragic outcome would naturally be the collapse of the martial epic. He had just become a middle heavenly venerable and was about to show his ambition. How could he be willing to give up like this? And no problem, Yi Shiwen said. After saying that, Yi Shiwen brought the two of them and flew in the direction of the West Heavenly Venerable. Soon, they found the West Heavenly Venerable and the others. They were all recuperating there. They had been severely injured previously, but they were occasionally chasing away some law life forms that barged in. Middle Heavenly Venerable, Eastern Heavenly Venerable, Heavenly Talisman Immortal Venerable. The West Heavenly Venerable had the best eyesight, so he immediately discovered the three people flying over. You really rescued them. In that case, you must have been the one who fought earlier. After seeing the three people, the West Heavenly Venerable was even more certain of his previous judgment. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen who had caused such a sensation? Although he had already expected this, he was still shocked when he confirmed it. The middle heavenly venerable and the heavenly talisman immortal were clearly at the end of their lives. They were in a much more dangerous situation than she had been in when she was alive. Although she had been constantly fleeing back then, she hadn't actually reached the point where she was at the end of her life. In fact, she had only been forced to fight because someone had caught up to her. However, the middle heavenly venerable and the heavenly talisman immortal were clearly at the end of their lives. They had forcefully stimulated too much of their life source. On the surface, there didn't seem to be many injuries. In fact, it was no different from saying that they were only left with a layer of their bodies. The self-recovery mechanism of a heavenly venerable's body had been completely destroyed. The fact that they were able to keep their bodies intact was already a manifestation of their tyrannical cultivation. One could imagine what kind of battle the two of them had encountered. Now, Yi Shiwen had brought them back. In that case, it wouldn't be too much to overestimate Yi Shiwen. That's right, it's mine. It's a pity that the half-moon immortal lord came out halfway and couldn't kill demon venerable Luo Ho and the heavenly talisman immortal. I'll leave the middle heavenly venerable and the heavenly talisman immortal to you. I'll go and finish them off, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. What? You're going to kill demon venerable Luo Ho and the heavenly talisman immortal? The West Heavenly Venerable exclaimed in shock. The information revealed in Yi Shiwen's words was too shocking. According to what Yi Shiwen had said, he didn't rescue them from the hands of demon venerable Luo Ho and the heavenly talisman immortal. Instead, he had killed most of them before bringing them back. One rescued, the other brought them back. These weren't the same concepts at all. At the start, she thought that demon venerable Luo Ho, the heavenly talisman Thunderfire, and the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord would come after Yi Shiwen, and there would be another huge battle. However, from the looks of it, there wasn't any huge battle at all. Everyone had clearly been killed by Yi Shiwen. Only demon Venerable Luo Ho and the heavenly talisman Thunderfire were left. Disregarding the others, even the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord had died in Yi Shiwen's hands. This was simply inconceivable. Given her cultivation, she had no chance of winning against the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord. At most, she could only hold on for a little longer. She wasn't completely confident of escaping either. At that level, only experts of that level would be able to fight against them. Not only had Yi Shiwen reached that level, but he had also killed the Sun Eclipse Ghost Lord. Generally speaking, defeating and killing were two completely different things. The difficulty could be said to be more than 10 times greater. It was just like when she fought against experts of the same level. Back when the Middle Heavenly Venerable was still the Eastern Heavenly Venerable, it was possible for him to defeat her. However, it was almost impossible for him to kill her. He would have to advance to another level in order to do so. How'd he do it? The West Heavenly Venerable looked at Yi Shiwen in shock. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.